Have those? A couple people in Middle America do. You might be surprised. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Welcome to Middle America. My name is Vincent. We are not left-wing. We're not right-wing. We're just rights. That's what we say. I guess the results of that statement will have to be validated or invalidated by you beautiful people. As I said, it is Middle America. We are covering a very interesting topic today because not a lot of you would predict it. If I would have said, hey, Vin is going to do a video, I doubt very highly you beautiful people would have selected this video as the one that we're doing. But here we are. We are live, and we are going to be talking about the very non-controversial subject of quote-unquote parents' rights. Now, what, pray tell, would instigate such a conversation like this? Shout out to the big homie Applejack. Applejack in the building. Applejack in the building. As you know, dear listener, we have a Facebook page. It's called facebook.com/America Middle. And in that page, anyone and everyone can opine. And a lot of times, those opinions are diametrically opposed to my opinion. I am not even the admin on the site, and that's okay. I wouldn't have it any other way. But somebody on the Middle America site posted this video, and I watched it last night or this morning, and I said, "Yep, I'm gonna have to address that because I haven't talked about. I very rarely ever talk about it, and you guys will see why in a second. Why I very rarely talk about it. But it is something to think about. The person had posted about parental rights or parents' rights, and apparently, right-wing parents are somehow becoming obsessed with this concept of parental rights. Now, I didn't know that they were obsessed with it, but here we are. This is the world that we live in right now, dear listener. It can't be that there's that right-wingers have an interest in parents' rights. It can't be that. They've got to be obsessed with parents' rights. All right. So I'm actually, what I'm going to do, I'll do you guys one better. I'm not going to show you the post. I'm actually going to show you the video because somebody posted a video. And as we're talking, I'm going to be addressing certain people. My very dear friend and little sister, Tiara, says parents don't need any rights. They already have all the extra rights. There's no need. They're just being dramatic. Parents are weird or whatever. Now, keep in mind, my little sister currently is not a parent herself. That's important to note. But she believes that parents have all the rights that they need. Let me see what she said. There's no rights a parent doesn't already have. They don't need these laws. It's legit just performance politics, is what she said. So there really is no necessity for parents' rights, according to my friend. What's happening here is that right-wingers are just being like super dramatic. Like parents don't have any concerns about what their children are being taught or whatever. Okay. So let's keep going. Shout out to everybody that's joined. I'm gonna jump on the video now. Full disclosure, I'm a homeschool dad. So a lot of obviously the concept of parental rights itself has a lot of ramifications for me and our family, considering that we're homeschoolers. So it does have massive ramifications for me. Generally, I stay out of the education discussion because I don't have a dog in the fight because we're fine. I don't worry about what's going on in the school as far as X, Y, or Z because that's one of the reasons I homeschool. So I don't have to worry about what my kids are ingesting from authoritative sources, okay? So here we go. The question is, why are parents, right-wing parents, so crazy about parents' rights? Now, this was posted by an individual who I guess does not believe in parental rights. So that's very fascinating. I'm going to play you guys a video, and I'm going to tell you guys out front what I believe is so important about this topic. Number one, as a Christian, I believe that my religion tells me that I cannot outsource the education of my children to anyone, much less some random stranger who I have no idea who they are. Okay? So from a biblical perspective, we're told in the Old Testament to teach our children when they stand up, when they go to bed, when they go on the way, yada, 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 yada. So, number one, I believe in, quote, parents' rights relative to because my religion tells me that that is my number one responsibility. Number two, Jesus of Nazareth said that over time a student becomes like their teacher. Over time, a student will become like their teacher. And because I am a Christian with a specific design on impacting the world for Christ, I do not want my children taught by secularists or a secular institution for 12 years before they go to higher learning, because that is going to produce a little secularist. And I am not a secularist. But that entire system over there is a school system run by secularists. I'm not mad at them for that. It's just I have a completely different worldview. And dear listener, at the end of the day, as much as we would love to live in a postmodern fantasy land that everybody can hold to these different ideas without imposing them on each other, this particular discussion militates against that idea. Dear listener, the idea that only religious people want to impose their ideology and their worldview on people is silly. It's silly. People talk about a culture war. We're not in the midst of a culture war. We're in the midst of a worldview war. And the question is, who is going to win so as to impose their vision of the future onto everybody else? That's all this game is about. That's all politics is, dear listener. People go, no, I'm a liberal. I just want Medicare for all. Don't you understand, dear listener, that if we achieve Medicare for all, that will be achieved because we have imposed a certain kind of tax code onto people who otherwise wouldn't do it? Medicare for all is an imposition onto people. That's why it's not popular. That's why people that have means don't like Medicare for all, because they know that it would be us imposing our value system onto them. We're saying human beings are more important than capital. And they're saying, no, the capital I earned as an individual is more important than the human being next to me. So those are worldviews at war. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to win so as to impose Medicare for all on that guy. I hope you understand that. So I don't send my children to public school because I am not naive. I understand that I am at war to establish the supremacy of Christ over all things. That's the goal. I don't look at the world as in like, here's religion over here, here's finances over here, here's the internet over here, here's sexuality over here. My understanding of the world is that all of that gets subsumed under Christ and that Christ is Lord of all. If Christ is Lord of all, how could I send my children into a school system that does not have him as Lord of all? What is Lord of all in the school system is the state. The state is Lord of all in the school system. I'm not angry at them for that. That's their institution. All I'm saying is, I am not sending my children into that kind of an institution. Number 4, I do not want my children to become statists. Mankind is designed to worship, and we are going to worship something or some institution. And what we saw with the implementation of forced secularism during when the atheists had control of the Soviet Union was we saw those folks going directly after education and going after the parents through their children. We had children in these Soviet regimes that were being turned against their own parents. Where was this happening? At the school. Police, if they suspected you, wouldn't tap your phone. They would just go to your school. There's a reason that when Hitler took over, the Germans made homeschooling illegal and private schooling illegal. There's a reason for that.
Didn't Hitler say if you control the youth, you control the nation?
Sadoct, if you control the... Correct. Because Hitler understood we're not going to get 40, 45-year-old Austrian people to go along with this bullshit. But I can get a teenager. I was watching History Channel, and you had the Hitler Youth kids executing officers who were surrendering over there on the front line. Okay. Now, having said that, there are the reasons. Reason number 5, I have black children. I am not sending my black children into an institution that was made for, by, and for white people. I'm not angry. Look, I've said this a million times. The whole Ruby thing where you send a little black girl into the white school and you have all the white students spit on her and call her all types of names, all type of shit. I'll never understand that. I don't believe that the parents that did that to that girl are heroes in any way, shape, or form. I don't think that that's something that's desirable or replicatable. You send that little child into that school. Can't you couldn't send them to a black school? 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4 in the black school. It equals 5 in the black school. You got to go to a white school for that to happen. Look, if you're on the left at least acknowledges that racism still exists in this country, and it still exists at a systemic level. So maybe I've lost a lot of the right-wing folks on the platform for the 5th reason. But if you're on the left, you have to acknowledge this. If you're on the left, you still believe in institutional racism. If institutional racism is still a thing, why in the hell would I send my black children, especially my black boys, into such an institution? Dear listener, I hope you understand that there is no subject that can be taught from a neutral perspective. Our worldview colors everything that we do. For example, I was having a conversation with my son about this, where I was talking about math, and math being based in logic, and math being an immaterial, eternal principle, not that we invented, but that we discovered. And that then requires, because this is an exercise that requires mentation and is timeless and eternal, math literally is a testimony of the fact that there is a God, that there is an ultimate mind at work. The reason why 2 plus 2 will equal 4 tomorrow, this is sort of a species of the induction issue that Bertrand Russell would talk about. 2 plus 2 is guaranteed to equal 4 tomorrow because there is an objective eternal mind at work. And so math gets us to the point of touching that eternal mind, which is why all scientific theories have to be proven via a mathematical formula. It's a universal language. It's a language that transcends time, space, all the rest of it. A Spanish person says cuatro, and I say 4, but as far as the thing in itself, the concept of 4, that's something that's universal, no matter what we call it. So there's a lot of theology around the concept of mathematics and logic and history. Secularists teach history as just a series of accidents that kind of happen, whereas the worldview that I have is that God is operating in history, especially in major events in history, and we think about the theological ramifications of what America means and how that works in regard to the overarching concept of redemption. So again, our worldview is such that God is a presupposition of everything. I'm not even going to touch science. God is a presupposition of everything. So why would I send my kids into a context where God is not presupposed at all? So when people say, "Oh, what you're saying is you want to be able to brainwash your kids," to me, it's a very, very interesting statement, because to me, people are telling on themselves. Mm-hmm. So if I educate my own child, I'm brainwashing them. So I should send them to a public school facility where they can do what? It seems that we're not concerned about kids being brainwashed. It seems that we're really concerned about who's doing the brainwashing. That's what it looks like to me. Okay, having said that, here is the video in question, and we're gonna talk about it. Why are conservatives so obsessed with parental rights? So there you go. So we're going to be posting this. And by the way, we're also going to be looking at certain situations in which parental rights were violated, clearly, because I had somebody on the platform tell me that all the rights that parents need are already there, and this is just performative bullshit, is what the person said. So hopefully, inshallah, as my Muslim friends say, we can get to that too and demonstrate that's actually not the case in any way, shape, or form. I wish it was. Believe me, I wish it was. What's up, Sadie Douglas? Good to see you. This is an interesting one. I don't really know where you're at, Sadie, relative to the question of parents' rights, but we're chopping it up on parents' rights. If I can get my technology to work with me, that would be great. I cannot tell you, beautiful people, how frustrated I am by the inability for this computer to do what I need it to do. But while I'm loading that up, we can talk. Wait, there's math? I don't do math. Yeah, I mean, we're touching on education to a degree. So some of y'all, like I said, I'm going to lose some of y'all because it has to do with math and spelling and science and all the rest of it, for sure. But I'm hoping I can get the tech to work. I mean, we're a little clippy and it's spinning around, but I think we can do it. We can watch this video. Sadie doesn't do math. You know, I wasn't really a fan of math when I was in school. Even as an atheist, as an agnostic, that's actually a really beautiful idea, that math is the scaffold that God uses to build the world. Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, I would much rather live in that world than the other world. My school's pretty lit, though, not gonna lie. We got a coffee shop ran by the students. That's badass. I love that. I think teaching kids like that kind of independence, maybe some entrepreneurship, I think that's badass. I wish, some of you guys, because of technology and things like that, some of you guys got really, really cool ideas, and you got really cool teachers that'll take a risk with you guys. So I think that's cool. So I'm not out here trying to diss all schools in general. I'm just saying why me as a Christian, why I cannot, from my own convictions, I could never send my kids to public education.
Have you been sitting around thinking about starting a YouTube channel? Feeling like you have a lot to say and would love to get on here and make a name for yourself?
Okay, guys, I finally got the video to work. So she's starting off her video with a commercial, and then we can go at it. I always thought of science. Jay Rillo said, I always thought of science as a language that translates God's creation. Yeah, I mean, I could say that science is the methodology, but math would probably be the language, right? So like when you're trying to prove like one of your theorems, right? And like, for example, Einstein's theory of relativity is a famous calculation, formulation, E = mc squared, right? So which is basically a combination of math and logic and algebra and things like that to speak to a scientific observational reality. In order for us to say, yes, you're actually seeing something real, that has to get converted into mathematical language. Because there's this universal understanding that math is the sort of objectivity of the truth that kind of ends all debate, right? But just on that alone, when you talk about mathematics, and of course, to Delaney's point, math is part of science. I mean, they're different sides of the same coin. But again, we're having a really fruitful conversation that has a bunch of implications because of what I just said about math. You're not going to have a conversation like that in public school because you can't. Because the public school is not designed to have that kind of a result. The public school system is designed to create a certain kind of person. I'm not going to say all of what I think it's designed to create, but at minimum, it's designed to create people who are ready to work and follow orders and be taught how to think for the small group of other people who want to make money. So the public school system does a great job of creating a compliant workforce, is what it looks like to me. For real, if my single mother tried to educate me at home, I would be very disadvantaged to get to where I am today. I don't think most parents are cut out to teach their kids. I don't know about your mom and what her capabilities were. And I don't know what your age bracket is, but as far as like right now, especially with the multitude of educational software that there is, I just don't think there's any excuse. I mean, my kids, look, I don't know how else to say this. My kids were just at the floor of the capital of our state, fighting for babies. Now, me and Sori weren't there because we didn't know what was going on. This was just something that they kind of looked for. They saw it an opportunity for, and they each wrote their statement, and they knew that they had to have a statement prepared for like a minute and a half. They each had a statement, went up there at the floor of the U.S. Senate. So, like, kids are doing civics class. My kids are doing the civics. Like, that's the difference, right? And of course, it's self-serving for me to brag about this, which is why I went out on my way to say I wasn't involved with this. I didn't look it up. I didn't even know it was being. I didn't speak at the place. You guys would think that I'd speak. I didn't speak. I wasn't there. I didn't go. This was something completely done by them. They didn't even have me proofread their speeches. They just went up there and did it. The only reason I saw it was because it was recorded and all that jazz. But we all know that homeschool kids have advantages that other kids do not. So I'm not sure if that's true. Now, as I said, Tasco, I don't know your mom's living situation, so I'm not sure. Okay, so here we go. Here we go, guys. Pagan Dead says, I respect homeschoolers. The state only wants to indoctrinate, not educate. Correct. Now let's look at what this lady has to say.
True line in all of this, parents' rights.
Here we go, parents' rights. Here we go. Oh, this wonderful young lady in the plaid shirt and the glasses. This should be interesting. Let's check it out.
Growing rallying cry from the right that they get to indoctrinate whatever they want into their kids' heads, and no one, especially not the government, has the right to interfere with that or present their kid with any alternative forms of thought.
See right there? That's why I said these people are telling on themselves. This woman understands that this is a war of worldviews. Right from the gate, she understands that this is not about teaching the kid 2 + 2 = 4. This is about teaching the kid where he belongs in society and what he should and shouldn't believe. This is about the thought life of our children. This is not about just communicating to them that 2 and 2 is 4. That's her admitting that she understands that the school has an agenda other than just transferring of information. It is also transference of a worldview, because that institution is designed to create compliant workers who will not ruffle anybody's feathers, who have been taught how, what to think, not how to think. That's what that institution is designed to create. Okay? And she just came out of the box and said it right from the gate. These parents have this weird idea that they get to teach their kids their value system and not let strangers who they don't know or who they know are hostile to their value system influence their children. Imagine that. It's almost as if people's children belong to them.
Is that true, though? What actually are your rights over that little crotch goblin you've spawned? Let's talk.
Here we go. What are your rights over the crotch goblin you spawned? I mean, you know, it's funny, I guess. Leftists are just really horrible when it comes to children, though. The messaging is terrible. You guys come off like you hate children. Honestly. Now, some of you do. A lot of you do. But I don't think it's a good way to pick people off who are stragglers. But you guys definitely have issues with children. Holy shit. They hate them. Crotch goblin. We continue.
Talk about it. Roll the intro. First, let me thank my partner on today's video, Warby Parker. I think the thing I get most compliments on are my glasses.
Okay, this is a commercial about glasses. No disrespect to the young lady, but we gotta go. Yeah, I mean, your bestie calls her friends crotch goblins. You know, I call them, oh, you horrible little bastards. I mean, it just depends. You know, it just depends. I'm just saying the optics are that leftists really hate kids. Like, you guys can't say anything nice about kids ever. We continue.
I switch back. Guys, we stare at screens so... I'm always looking to freshen it. If everything I wore was also black. .com/Legia to responsible for that little crumb cruncher's well-being, including...
All right, here we go, guys. Here we go. Now we're going to be talking about rights and responsibilities, which, by the way, I think in every relationship, you first should ask what your responsibilities are before your rights, but that's a Christian worldview thing. We'll continue.
Day. Thanks, Warby Parker. Create that new little human being that you brought into the world comes with a lot of legal strings attached. Those strings include responsibilities you are legally obligated to take on and liabilities you are legally obligated to take on if your semen demon breaks the laws. As
Semen demon. Like, this woman is just... again, like... I'm not like offended that, you know, I'm not I'm just saying, like, it just seems like the zeitgeist around the left is just childism is what it looks like to me. We continue.
well as some constitutional rights that have been established over years of Supreme Court precedent. First, let's talk your responsibilities. If you have a kid, you are responsible for that little crumb cruncher's well-being, including providing a safe living environment, protecting the child from abuse and other dangers, paying child support as ordered, fulfilling the child's basic needs like food, shelter, and water, disciplining the child.
By the way, if you sire a child, even if you do not consent to have your child support docked, they will still dock your child support. They will not respect your fiscal autonomy. They will take your child support money, even if you don't consent, just because you consented to have sex with that girl and get her pregnant. We continue.
Investing in the child's education, knowing the child's interests, and spending quality time with the child. If you don't live up to these requirements, then a court could order that you don't deserve to have any rights over that little rugrat, and they'll take them from you. Of course, many parents get away with not knowing the kid's interests or spending quality time with them and not disciplining them in any constructive way, all without any court intervention. So as with many...
Sire a child? Who talks like that? The reason I said sire a child is because I literally was in a debate with a particular individual who had a particular position, who said that you are not a parent, you're not a mother or a father unless you consent to be one. So when I said father to child, he goes, no. Father is only a person who consents to be one. So I didn't want to get into a giant argument about words, which is what people do when they're trying to like get away from the implications of an argument. So I just used the term like sire in order to go forward, so I didn't have to deal with the guy's BS, if that makes any sense. We continue.
Things, the law can only go so far, and what happens behind closed doors is often outside the purview of the law unless someone intervenes and calls Child Protective Services. Alright, but then if that crib lizard becomes a tween who likes to break laws, well then you've got some liabilities on your hands. In most states, if your kiddo...
Yeah, like for example, if you were in California, for example, and you were a struggling black single mother and the fucking DA in California decides that she's going to invent a truancy law, so that now that you're struggling, your kid, you know, he takes a day off from high school, but the cops jam him up, and then that person goes and makes you perp walk while you're in pajamas in front of everybody because you're a black woman and this DA is a racist white woman. Sorry, let me check my notes. Oh, the DA at the time was Kamala Harris that did that to a black girl. Turns out it wasn't some nasty racist white person. It was Kamala who did that. We continue.
Injures another person or damages property and they're under 18, you as the parent could face civil or even criminal penalties for their actions. You could be held liable for compensating the harmed party, though different states do impose different limits on age and limits on the total amount of damages you'd have to pay. Also, most states have laws against contributing to the delinquency of a minor. I'm in Minnesota, so I looked up the Minnesota statute. It says any person who by act, word, or omission encourages, causes, or contributes to delinquency of a child or to the child's status as a juvenile petty offender is guilty of a gross misdemeanor.
Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing where these things come up, where it talks about the delinquency of a child, right? So if you do something that's like actively promoting the delinquency of a child, then you're held liable. Okay. what's the actual definition of delinquency in this legal language? Like, would it be, for example, exposing, let's say, a 6-year-old child to a grown man who's dressed in the opposite gender, who then exposes his buttocks and shakes it in front of said 9-year-old child? Would that be contributing to his or her delinquency? I'd like to know.
Unless the parent took reasonable steps to control the child's conduct. Then that could be a valid defense to any claim of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Notice that it's a person who by act or omission contributes to the delinquency. So that's pretty broad.
Right, like the teacher who sat there. An act of commission is something you do proactively. An act of omission is something you don't do when you should have done the right thing. Now, again, I want you guys to stop and see how many assumptions are being made here. I'm not saying that she's wrong. I'm saying she's using terms like delinquency, like all of us have an idea, a unified idea of what makes a person delinquent. She uses words like health and things of that nature, as if all of us have an understanding of what health means. What does health mean when your 9-year-old boy tells you that he's no longer a boy? What does health mean in that context? Is there a universally understood definition for what health is in that context? Who makes that decision? See? These are worldview battles. These are not constitutional battles. These are battles about people's worldview. And your worldview comes with a set of goods and evils. And what you consider good and what you consider evil is contingent on the base presuppositions you have at the beginning. We continue.
And it means it's as much about what you didn't do or failed to do as it is about any affirmative act you took with regards to your child. Many states also have firearm access prevention laws that make it illegal for a parent to leave a firearm within reach of a child, as well as internet access and computer hacking laws that hold a parent responsible for their child's online crimes. So
I'm with that. Mm-hmm. I believe in taking responsibility for the crimes of your children. So those are good laws in my view.
What does that mean? Parents would go to jail if their kids do something?
Yeah, if your kid is like running a hacking operation from your house and he's like 14, 15 and he's running a hacking operation and he gets jammed up, you 100% should pay a price as a parent. For sure. See, that's the other side of it. See? When you put all that responsibility, I didn't know that you were like in the video. When you put all that responsibility on the parent, then they should have rights commensurate to that. Okay, we continue.
Crotch critter running around, you'd do best to keep one eye on.
Crotch critter. This woman can't help it. Semen demon, crotch critter.
I know, I've been hearing them all. I don't like it.
Yeah, they generally
because
don't.
Because as I said, everybody that's been commenting in the comment section is all saying like, well, I called my kid this. It's everybody what they've said about their own children. Like, you obviously know the love you have for your own kid. So if you call your kid somebody said spawn of this or whatever, like, that's you as the parent. Like, somebody else is calling other people's kids these names.
Yeah. And like I said, like, if the left wasn't just so, like, hateful to children,
right? Then it would be like,
wouldn't have the same. But it'd be like somebody from like Alabama with a heavy Southern twang, using every slang for black people that he could. Like, it may not necessarily be bad, but it's like, I don't know, man.
Not good.
Considering what you represent, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
All right, we continue.
Them and their activities, lest ye be held responsible for their crimes. Okay, so those are your responsibilities and liabilities, but what most people, especially conservatives, are screaming about when it comes to parents' rights are the rights that they perceive to be their constitutional rights protected by the U.S. Constitution.
No, when I talk about parental rights, I initially am talking about the rights that God gave me.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm not a secularist. I don't believe that the state gives anyone rights. And by the way, the people that started this country didn't believe that either. They believed that it was a state's job to uphold the inherent rights that people had from their creator. Which is another thing that they're not teaching kids in school, which is another reason why my children will not go to those institutions. We continue.
I say perceive because I would bet a lot of money that most parents screaming parents' rights while being bigoted and actively harming children probably have no idea what the Constitution actually protects. So when she says
they want their rights by being bigoted and actively harming children. We are 6 minutes and 38 seconds into this video, dear listener. Now, we've seen 2 commercials. We haven't seen any examples of parents being bigoted and wanting to harm their children. What could she be talking about? Where did this term bigotry come from? What is she referring to? That's a good question. Maybe we'll find out soon, inshallah. We continue.
Go over it. First, let me say this. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say anything about the rights that parents have over their children. Any constitutional rights that parents...
Now, this woman is a lawyer, so she knows good and well that that all laws and things like this happen with constitutional amendments. That the Constitution gives us principles that we apply in case law that we then say this is how the law works in real life. She knows that as a lawyer. You learn that literally the first day in law school. Now, I know a little bit about this stuff because the DA of this state tried to violate our free speech rights relative to trying to stand up for the unborn. So I'm vaguely familiar with the law. Okay, we continue.
Have gained have been based on interpretation of the Constitution through Supreme Court precedent. And the way the Supreme Court has found that parents do have rights that aren't explicitly written in the Constitution is through the unenumerated rights in the 14th Amendment. If that sounds familiar, that's because the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause also contains the unenumerated rights to same-sex marriage, contraception, and until recently, abortion. The source of the so-called parental rights in the Constitution that conservatives are so certain that they have is the same source that they are constantly screaming against when it comes to abortion, contraception, and same-sex marriage. None of these rights are written down. They've been found to exist by the Supreme Court as part of the idea of liberty protected by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. That's right, fuckwads. You want to start breaking down long-held Supreme Court precedent about fundamental freedoms? That shit can go both ways. Let's fucking tango, baby. But listen.
Yeah, let's tango. I wouldn't have a problem tangling you about that at all. I mean, let's set up the debate. Dear listener, the due process clause that was used relative to the support of abortion during Roe was due process relative to the right to privacy. That was the argument. Now, the response was, we don't know when life begins. This is official Supreme Court. We don't know. It's very murky when life begins. So we don't know where that line is between the woman's body and we're dealing with a new human being. So that being the case, let's just leave the woman and her doctor behind the door. That's a right to privacy. That's the argument. So if you just listen to YouTube and you go, well, shit, the first thing, oh, hey, if you give parents rights, then you have to also support the right to abortion. No, you don't. Because parents' rights are based on a constitutional precedent and the precedent that happens in the normal lived life of the Americas. That's how you make these laws. Abortion is not. Abortion is based on faulty science and faulty argumentation and this woman knows this. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I was going to say, and
Ruth
racism.
Bader Ginsburg had a problem with Roe. She thought it was flimsy and it wasn't going to be able to hold up either. She's not going to tell you that. She's a lawyer. She knows that. You know what else is funny? Is when she talks about, oh, you're overturning judicial precedents. Very interesting for this white lady to say that. Because there are other parts of, there are other constitutional decisions by the Supreme Court that have been overturned. Like, I don't know, the Dred Scott decision, which like codified into U.S. law the dehumanization of black people. I guess when we went and screwed with that long-standing constitutional tradition that we did something bad. Ridiculous. But this is another reason why I educate my children, because, dear listener, on any given subject, there are almost 1 trillion points of data relative to that subject, and you decide what you're going to expose people to based on the conclusion you want people to come to. So this woman doesn't say, hey, abortion was stuffed in through the right to privacy angle, and even the most radical, murderous pro-abortion person with blood on their mouths would say that it was flimsy, and knew that it was flimsy, and that it was based on ignorance and junk science. We know that. We've all read the amicus briefs over there for the Dobbs decision. Well, some of us have. But again, She's not going to tell her audiences. She's a lawyer. She's kind of a millennial. She says the word fuck. She's cool. But at the same time, she has a training of a lawyer. So she's a credible source. So here we go. This is what happens. She's not going to tell you about the Dred Scott decision. She's not going to tell you of Doe v. Bolton. You know, where we are forcibly sterilizing. It's constitutional to forcibly sterilize a woman in this country against her will.
Friggin' crazy.
She's not going to talk about that either. She's got a long-standing constitution. Okay, well, my kids know all about that stuff. See, that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the difference. We continue.
And it is true that for the past century, the Supreme Court has read into the 14th Amendment of the Constitution certain fundamental rights held by parents. There are a handful of important cases.
Don't listen to me. The Supreme Court case where we were talking about forcibly sterilizing kids, sterilizing women, is actually Buck v. Bell, not Doe v. Bolton. Good correction, Ian Kirby. It's very, very important that you have people like Ian in your life that can tell you, hey, you're wrong here. That's important. Okay, we continue.
In the parental rights jurisprudence. Let's dive into them, shall we? In Mayer v. Nebraska in 1923, the court held that a statute forbidding the teaching of any foreign language, specifically German in this case, in public, private, and parochial schools to kids under 12, impermissibly encroached on the liberty parents possess. The court explained that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment protects this liberty, incorporating the right to marry, establish a home, and bring up children. Basically, the law was trying to say that children should be indoctrinated with the American way of life with English, and they shouldn't learn any other language until 8th grade, so that when they're their youngest, most impressionable, they're properly taught what it means to be an American. Which sounds like a conservative, wet dream, frankly, but the Supreme Court found that that law infringed on the liberty of the parent to avail themselves of whatever schooling and whatever language they wanted for their kid, as long as...
See, this is one of the things where I think that modern leftism gets themselves in a lot of trouble.
Well, what do you mean?
They don't realize how far left they are, so anybody that disagrees with them, they call the right wing. So, for example, when Anna says, I want to be called a uterus haver or something like that.
I want to be called, yeah.
Right? All the comments below was, oh my God, Anna has become a right-winger. Anna has become a right-winger. Why? Because Anna, 6 months ago, characterized any woman who had a problem with that as a right-winger.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? So these people, they're so radicalized and so crazy to the left that they think that anybody that disagrees with them is a right-winger. So they think that the only people disagreeing with grown men shaking their ass in front of 8-year-old boys, they truly believe that it's only conservatives.
What?
That's what they think. As if left-wing parents don't want to protect their children either. Left-wing parents are just fine with their kids being over-sexualized and exposed to fucking perverts. We're the only ones that love our children and want them protected. Left-wing parents don't care about that. Left-wing parents don't teach their kids stranger danger and all that shit. Nope, only right-wing parents. That's what they do. They put it all on the right. That's fine. You can do that, but then it's going to make it so that you don't understand what happens in elections. Mm-hmm. We continue.
It didn't harm them. And just as a side note, if you're like, wow, that's wild, in 1923, who's teaching their kids German? For context, my grandfather, so my mom's dad, was born in central Minnesota in the 1930s, the child of like second or third generation German immigrants, and his first language was German. He didn't learn English until he started school at 6. I like thinking about history and Supreme Court precedent in that type of context because it brings it home a little more. This is not ancient history. You have known people in your lifetime who are affected by the laws the Supreme Court put in place a century ago. Hell, you...
Right-wingers do the same thing, though. No, I don't think that right-wingers say that everybody that disagrees with their crazy ideas are left-wingers. Look, I am not saying this to point at the left wing and say you guys are terrible. I'm saying this is bad strategy, and this is why left-wingers get completely blindsided by elections like Trump or whatever. Like, they have no idea what's happening. That's what I'm saying. That's why they keep getting caught with their pants down, because they've convinced themselves that they're like the moderate version and that everybody's like kind of on their side. They don't realize how far left they are. And so because of that, they don't know how to interpret the data honestly.
Literally all the mothers that I know, whether they're right, they're left, or wherever they are, none of them would be okay with somebody saying the stuff, the direction we're going with this.
Agree. And Brandon, I'm not talking about name callings. I'm talking about your internal understanding of who you're talking to. So I don't believe that I'm talking to a far right activist. If somebody comes to me and says, that person was twerking in front of my kid and I didn't like that, that does not tell me whether they're left or right wing.
No, it doesn't. It just...
Okay, but to a leftist, that would say that person's a right winger. In their mind, that's what I'm talking about.
That's wild.
And when you perceive somebody as a right winger, you're going to engage them a certain way. But if you perceive them as, actually, no, this person's actually on our side. It's just that we took this thing way too far. And all we got to do is make a quick little adjustment here, and they're going to be happy. Which is where I'm at with the LGBT stuff. I'm with it. I'll fight for you, whatever. But I'm a parent first. And when I see you doing that shit around kids, I'm like, yo.
I see what you're saying.
And then I see you defend that guy, so then I get pushed all the other way.
I just don't, you're saying it's a little adjustment. They canceled the entire Pride movement in Florida because the kids couldn't go to the event.
True.
To me, it's not a small thing for a certain group of them.
It's true.
That's the whole thing for them, because they shut the whole thing down.
It's starting to change my mind, I gotta tell you. I'm not gonna lie, it's starting to change my mind for sure.
Are still affected by many of them today. Anyway, I digress. So, Mayor v. Nebraska held that the 14th Amendment protects the liberty to bring up children in your home without overbroad governmental interference. Then, 2 years later, in 1925, the Supreme Court made a ruling in Pierce v. Society of Sisters. Relying on Mayor v. Nebraska, the case we just talked about, the court struck down an Oregon statute requiring children to attend public schools. They said that this statute interfered with the right of parents to select private or parochial schools for their children, and they said that it lacked a reasonable relation to any purpose within the competency of the state. They also, however, acknowledged that the state should concern itself with the well-being of children and with the public welfare, but in this specific case, the requirement to attend public schools goes too far.
Who defines public welfare, dear listener? Because I gotta tell you, Tucker Carlson has a much different understanding of public welfare than Cenk Uygur does. So who decides that? Again, this entire exercise we're doing is simply a contest of worldviews. She wants to impose her understanding of well-being onto the broader society of 380 million Americans. And we want to do the same. Otherwise, it's ridiculous to tell a person to go vote. We continue.
1944, in Prince v. Massachusetts, the court held that states may prosecute parents when they expose their children to serious hazards to their well-being. The facts of the case...
When they expose their children to serious hazards of their well-being. I agree. Which has massive implications then for a bunch of folks who bring grown-ass adults to strip and twerk in front of little children. You know, there's a lot of states where showing a child pornography is a misdemeanor up to a felony.
Yeah, considered abuse.
Exposing a child to that, much less putting them in the fucking video. So, again, I'm simply pointing out what she's talking about here. To her, I'm a bigot for saying I don't want grown adults twerking in front of little 8-year-olds. Because you heard what she said, bigot. And we all know, in the context of education, where that came up. We all know what's going on there. We continue.
Are interesting, though. Specifically here, the guardian of a 9-year-old girl gave her religious magazines to go sell in the streets. And it was against the law in Massachusetts at the time for someone that young to be selling things and working in that capacity. The guardian said it was within her religious freedom to have the kid sell these religious texts on the street. And the court was like, nah, okay? The power of the state to control the conduct of children is broader than its power over adults. And there is no denial of any...
No, because if they would have, and this actually ended up happening in other states, if they would have simply said, we're giving this away for free, the kid would have been fine. They caught them on a labor statute because they were selling the magazines, like a final call or, whatever. But if they would have simply took the monetary aspect out of it, the kid would have been able to do it no problem. So it wasn't that the parents wanted the kid to evangelize and the state came in and said, no, your kid can't evangelize. What it was it contradicted the labor law,
Right.
which...
Because the kid was getting paid, that means the kid
Correct.
is working.
He was generating
revenue. You're underage
revenue.
working.
Correct.
And then
He's
you can't do
generating
that.
revenue.
There's child labor laws on purpose. So we
Correct.
don't have sweatshops. There's lines to keep, but that's to protect kids.
Correct. That's to make sure that we're in the name of God or whatever, that we're not using our kids as cash cows, which is great, because that's built on a theological premise that kids should be protected.
Yeah.
You know, these people keep saying, well, what are the Uber rights that this kid suddenly has, that he has a right to live? That's what they'll say. And they're really like confused. They really don't know. They've been inundated by this system so much that they really think that you have to justify why a child should be able to live. It's unbelievable. We continue.
Equal protection or religious freedom, because this is a law applied to all children. You don't get special treatment because you belong to a certain religion and you want to break a child labor law in furtherance of that religion. So this was a limit of parental freedoms. Your religion does not give you free reign to submit your child to hazards to their well-being. All right? Moving on, we
Jack
have
is
Wisconsin.
right. What about that?
Huh?
That's true. Kids have lemonade stands all over the place. How come nobody gets in trouble for it?
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
If
they
kid goes into
intervened
business,
when it was a
if
religious
kid
thing.
goes into business. Well, no, because we've all seen the story with the mean guy who shuts down the kid's lemonade stand. Like, that's happened. Where the guy says, you can't do that. You don't have a
That's
permit
true.
or whatever.
I have seen that.
And everybody's like, what a dick that guy
Yeah.
is, huh? So, but he's right. Like, but again, Applejack is just pointing out the worldview issue.
Exactly. Right.
When we see a kid doing lemonade, we go, oh, he's being a good capitalist.
Yeah.
Because that's the state religion. It's capitalism.
Yeah.
But when he goes out and does another religion, now we got different questions. See? That's what I'm saying. This is a worldview issue. Mm-hmm. We continue.
Right.
Wisconsin v. Yoder decided in 1972. The court held that Wisconsin's compulsory education law that required all students to attend school violated an Amish father's rights to take his 15-year-old children out of school to complete their education in Amish ways at home. The court said the state's interest in universal education is not totally free from a balancing process when it impinges on other fundamental rights, such as those specifically protected by the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment and the traditional interest of parents with respect to the religious upbringing of their children. Okay, so you can't submit your child to hazards to their well-being in furtherance of your religion, but your religion does matter when it comes to state laws on how to educate your children. But
Right, because the state has a controlling interest about your child being educated, because when you're from conception to 18, you're responsible for your child. Mm-hmm. But then from 18 on out, your responsibilities aren't there. And what society's saying, that kid better be ready by the time he's 18 to contribute.
Oh my God. Yep.
We're not a safety net for y'all.
Yep.
So you can't say, hey, that's my kid. I will not educate him, whatever. It's like, yeah, but he's going to be our adult. Right?
Yeah.
He's going to be our adult. So
Yeah.
so when you talk about the state having a prevailing interest, that's what it's talking about.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
there's individualism, but you Republicans, you right-wingers, you're completely crazy. You do not live in a little little chamber with yourself. The actions that you do and the actions that you do with your children affect society as a whole. And if you raise for 18 years a completely uneducated person who does not have basic life skills, and then you say, hey, he's 18, he's no longer my problem. Well, no, we can't arrest you or do anything to you. But at that point, it's been too late. So what societies do is we create rules that head that off at the pass and say, if you're the type of person
That's true.
that does that, so you're not going to educate your own children, fine, we will educate your kids. Somebody's got to educate them, because we're not going to be fitting the bill for this kid. You got to find a way to make this kid a good, compliant capitalist. You've got 18 years to do it. Great luck. Okay? That's how it goes. So I'm just explaining that to right-wingers, because there's this crazy radical individual, and it's like, it's my kids and I... No. If you can't take love your neighbor as yourself, then we can go the constitutional route or the secular route and say, well, you still need to have a social contract because you're affecting other people. Now, I would love it if you would just say, love your neighbor as yourself, and you're not loving your neighbor if you do not educate your child. It's not loving your country to put your child in a situation where he's going to be completely dependent on your country and be a drain on resources instead of a contributor.
Right.
So the state has a prevailing interest in whether or not your child is educated. I'm sorry, they do. Because unless you live on an island where you own the island, everything you do affects everybody. It's not fair for you to be able to raise a just complete derelict monster of a person who's then you're gonna unleash to the rest of us because now he's 18 and you don't have to deal with him. Sorry. The state has a prevailing interest in the education of children. That's a fact. We continue. Delaney, stay away from pride marches as much as you can.
Yeah.
Nothing good will come of it. We continue. And by the way, I'm not proud of the fact that I'm a heterosexual. I don't go out of my way to tell people what kind of sex I have. I feel like that's private. Mm-hmm. We continue.
The court also said there is no doubt as to the power of a state having a high responsibility for education of its citizens to impose reasonable regulations for the control and duration of basic education.
And again, to impose reasonable regulations. Who determines that?
Yeah.
Who determines what reasonableness is in this context? Very interesting. I don't know. I'm not even going to answer that question. We continue. I'm the most badass straight white male you've ever seen. Give me a parade, idiots!
Because of this, the Amish parents had to demonstrate the adequacy of their...
But Vin, you wear a wedding ring. Most married couples have sex. You're advertising your sexuality every time you stream with story. Shut up! Ridiculous! Ridiculous! Look, if it's the gay teacher down in Ocala, Florida, and he's got a rainbow marriage ring or whatever, and he's got 9 pictures of him and his husband and their kids on the fucking desk and shit. I'm with that 10,000%.
Why are you answering such a dumb question? Nobody thinks a ring means sex. Everybody knows it means commitment.
It's important because he's right. A ring
what
does.
Do you mean?
If you take a secondary or tertiary logical ramification of what a ring means in a metaphorical world, he's absolutely right. What I'm saying is there's a difference between a person reading into the metaphor than coming out and saying, here it is, without any metaphor necessary. So yes, this ring has implications, but there's a difference between that and putting out a fucking sex tape, right? So, I'm with you, Ben, but this is what you keep conflating ideas that don't work. The subtlety of a wedding ring is not what parents have been reacting to in our culture, Ben. So your analogy has to go with it has to be within the planet or the solar system of what's going on, okay? But the concept of reasonableness is to me, it is unreasonable to talk to a child about sexuality without talking about God. To me, that's completely irrational. It's insane to me to talk about world history as a Christian and not talk about the sovereignty of God and the story of God and how what happened in 1862 on a Wednesday connects to the cross of Christ 2,000 years ago and connects to what they're going to be doing in 23 years. To me, that's crazy that all those ideas are separate in the mind of millions of Christian children.
These things are not disconnected. I mean, in school, they disconnect all these things. But in Christian theology, it's all connected. So the fact that you're going to talk about sexuality in school and you're not going to talk about the reason for sexuality coming from a biblical standpoint is to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and then for all of us to just spread out and show what God is like, because we're all image bearers, so we're supposed to spread that out, and you have kids and you teach them, and all of us are out there trying to make the world a better place and bring people back, because people have gotten separated from God. We're trying to bring people back to God. That's the mission. That's what you're doing with your family. So when we're talking about sexuality to our kids, we're not just explaining the process and then throwing some fear tactics at them to keep them from having sex before they get married. We tell them the purpose of marriage. If you teach them them the purpose of marriage, then your 15-year-old or 17-year-old or whatever understands that if they have sex with somebody right now and they get pregnant right now, that's going to make their mission a lot more difficult. Not that they can't do it, but killing the kid is not going to help that mission, because now you're going to have to deal with the trauma of participating in such an event.
And
but yeah, these things
because God made men and women different, my boys, generally speaking, are going to interpret sexuality different than women.
Right.
So if you have these casual sexual encounters as a dude, you might kind of be okay emotionally. But how does that work relative to loving your neighbor if you're using this girl as a masturbatory tool because you have no interest in her soul or her person?
Yeah.
See, if we're having sexual education discussion, those are discussions I'm going to have.
Right.
What I don't want is the gross Planned Parenthood operative who's in there who starts going into detail about
Here's
all
the
these
banana.
sexual
Here's
acts.
the condom, you guys.
Sexual acts.
Come on.
Shows them clips of pornography.
No.
Gives them little whatever and tells them, here's the clinic over here so we can have a steady trail of patients for abortions in 2 or 3 years. I don't want those people talking to my children about sex and sexuality.
Nope.
I don't want that to happen.
Nope.
We continue. Reasonable.
Alternative mode of continuing informal vocational education in terms of the overall interest that the state relies on.
I saw it.
What is wrong with him? What is your poison womb is flooding heaven. If you wanted to make the world a better place, you'd stop reproducing.
Oh my God.
Oh God, I love Ben. Ben's on my bucket list. I gotta meet him.
In support of its program of compulsory high school education, meaning they had to show that what they were teaching at home after pulling the kid from school still was adequate under the state's criteria. So yes, religion, but also the state has an interest in the education of its citizens. That's why it also has a say in what you teach your kid when you homeschool them, for example. Then in 2000, we have Troxel v.
Yeah. Your kid's got to be able to read. He's got to be able to write. I would say he really needs. I mean, our
Holy shit, Delaney.
Our education department needs an upgrade for sure, but it doesn't have the ability to do that because it's such a large institution. What's going on with Delaney?
Sex ed they had was 3D videos.
Subhanallah. We had 3D videos. Yeah. I legit listened to an interview with an ex-Planned Parenthood operative where they talked about doing that on purpose. They would go in there, kids about 14, 15 years old, get them all riled up, and then just say, it's fine, just take a pill here. If you miss a pill and
because they know, like,
you pop positive, that's okay, just come on over.
Money for them.
What do you mean? You saw where the clinic was in relation to the high school?
I'm not joking you. All the high school students had to walk past the clinic. Like, the clinic is like here, right at the corner. They all had to go right by that corner, so it was right there. So, and they always had the women with the pink vests right at that corner. So they were...
Well, Sadie, conversations are important, but it depends on who's running the conversation. If you're running the conversation, that's a different situation. But if some disgusting pedophile is running that conversation, or a closeted pedo is running that conversation...
Or that teacher that was wearing the fake breasts down to her knees almost.
Or the teacher that's wearing the giant... I don't want that individual talking to my kids about sex at all.
You clearly
and
have a problem.
I don't want my children getting any ideas about their sexuality from that person at all. Mm-hmm. And why the fuck are these adults so comfortable talking to other people's kids about sex in the first place?
Why do they want to?
Why are you comfortable having that I'm uncomfortable having that discussion.
I get uncomfortable having it with our own kids.
Summer comes around, the kids, it's like Grand Central Station here. Kids are in and out. You hear all types of shit. I'm not broaching that subject with a stranger's fucking kids.
No.
We have some pretty, there's no whole bards as far as like in-house conversations. Mm-hmm. Our kids, I'm pretty sure that our parenting philosophy is to the left of the vast majority of people in this room. They wouldn't accept you wouldn't. You're not really accepting of it either. But it is what it is. We continue.
Granville. In this case, the court declared a Washington state law unconstitutional because it was very broad and gave the state way too much power to grant visitation rights to non-parents, even when the parent objected. In this,
What? Yeah.
Who is getting these
This
rights?
is a school district over there in, I think it was Nebraska. They had to, like, literally take it to the court to sue. So, I'm sorry, Tiara, all this stuff about, oh, we don't need parents' rights, it's too performative. These parents have to sue for this, and there's more on the way.
I don't understand. Who's going to visit these kids that their parents don't want them to, but they have rights to do so?
School counselors, all types of other shit. I mean, there's a whole bunch of... The kid joins a certain community and the parents aren't told about it, and so they can have meetings with this person, and the parent has no idea. And the school and they had to go to court, which means they were doing that to everybody.
That's great. Oh, the girl that I was listening to was saying that she said that she was going through a really confusing time, and that they had brought her to the counselor, and then the school counselor was like hearing what she was saying. She hadn't even thought about the trans, discussion. But the counselor kind of like started broaching it and was like, maybe this is why you're feeling this way, and like started pushing the issue to the degree where she socially started transitioning her at school without the parents' knowledge.
Yeah. And this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But that's why she had to poison the well at the beginning by talking about bigotry. Because now if you're a parent who doesn't want Joe to come home and all of a sudden he's Josephine, now you're a bigot for saying that, and now the teacher is a hero for socially transitioning your child under your nose because you're a horrible parent, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but what training does this school counselor have? My God.
That's what I'm saying.
They need to actually see somebody who's trained.
But regardless of the training, because there's a whole bunch of trainers that will fucking socially transition your kids. I don't give a fuck what training you have.
No, I'm not saying that they should go meet with somebody who's going to transition.
But that's what's happening.
That's
what's going on.
That's
what's going on. That's what I'm saying. And they think they're good teachers for not letting the parents know what's going on with their own children. Like, yeah.
This is insane.
Teaching at home after pulling the kid from school still was adequate under the state's criteria. So yes, religion, but also the state has an interest in the education of its citizens. That's why it also has a say in what you teach your kid when you homeschool them, for example. Then in 2000, we have Troxel v. Granville. In this case, the court declared a Washington state law unconstitutional because it was very broad and gave the state way too much power to grant visitation rights to non-parents, even when the parent objected. In this case, the court ruled that the grandparents had to have a certain amount of visitation days, even though the mom didn't want it. And so the Supreme Court was like, nah, that's way too broad, and it infringes on parental.
I was present at a friend's aunt's birth when I was 9. Saw it all, the beauty of birth. Sadie, were your parents informed that this was happening? And these are your friends. These are people your parents trust.
But I don't understand.
I don't have a problem with children seeing graphic imagery relative to sex, sexuality, or biology so long as their parents are informed and involved and have veto power.
Yeah, and the other thing too...
That's the problem. I am not talking about you've got a family friend, you've seen the woman pregnant for the entire process, you saw the baby bump, and then you saw the beach ball, and then you got brought... That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is some random 23-year-old blue-headed girl with a fucking bone in her nose and shit talking to little Joey and asking little Joey what his pronouns are. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, oh my God, Republicans are so stressed out about people seeing a vagina. That's not the problem. It's who's doing it. That's the issue. And the context. Go ahead.
Yeah, the context, the purpose behind it. Like, if you asked, what's the purpose of this 9-year-old watching this delivery? Well, you're a woman, so you're probably most likely going to have the opportunity in the future to have a child, and for you to have that sort of understanding would be good, not only for you to see it, but also for you to help other people in this. There's a million positive reasons for that. But why should we be okay with the stuff that they're putting in front of children is not like, oh, there's a future in this. Like, what is this person that has barely no clothes on dancing around like this in front of a kid's face? How is that going to help that kid in the future? Besides normalizing inappropriate behavior for a child, like no grown adult. If we walked into Walmart and there was a grown person twerking with barely no clothes on in front of a kid, we'd all be appalled by it. Why is it that if it's at a pride parade, we have to be okay with it and it has to be more like, well, they're doing their thing? No. These are children.
School. It's not even happening at a parade. Right. It's happening at a school.
This is happening at schools.
I put that up on Middle America. Yeah, people defending that shit. It was unbelievable. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you people?
But honestly, I feel like that because if you say anything negative about a certain group of people, depending on which group of people that is, you could get shut down. We can trash talk white men from here till the end of the show, and nobody's going to shut us down. But there are certain groups of people that if you talk too much about, you can get shut down, you can get throttled, blah, 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 blah. We all know. So people...
And again, to Tasco's point,
sometimes I think people are defending it because they're trying to stay in a certain mindset about the topic.
Yeah, a lot of them.
How can you stop and think through this whole thing and be like, yeah, I'm good.
A lot of these people, a lot of these people are not parents themselves. That's
the other thing too.
They're just not.
That's
so
the other thing,
they don't know. They're like, well, if I had a kid, I would do X. Man, shut up. You're not a parent.
I thought so many things before I was a parent.
There's like one person in the channel, and she has all these opinions. Like, you don't even have a child, beloved.
Yeah.
What do you mean? All right, we continue.
Rights over who.
Oh, but I do want to point this out because Tasco had a good rebuttal to say to you. He said, "Did you get invited to your friend's aunts to show you how they kicked the process off?"
Right,
Correct. Correct. Inappropriate. And by the way, if my kid came home and said he just witnessed a delivery and I wasn't told, I would have words with that father for sure. For sure. We continue.
Yeah.
And no, you cannot know at 7 that you're fucking transgender or whatever. No. But again, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We continue.
Gets to see their kids. In this case, the court again asserted that the 14th Amendment protects parental rights, saying the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause has a substantive component that provides heightened protection against government interference with certain fundamental rights and liberty interests, including parents' fundamental right to make decisions concerning the care, custody, and control of their children.
Care, custody, and control.
That's crazy.
That's an interpretation of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. It is not the state's job to care or control my children. They're mine. Their last name is not America. They have my last name. So I'm responsible for them and their education, not the fucking state.
But you know how they'll tell you? Remember whenever...
I'll tell you, I'm a nonviolent person. But there are only 2 situations in which I've told the Lord Jesus, don't put me in that situation. 1, no police officer better harm any of my child in any physical way. And number 2, nobody better ever come from as an agent of the government to tell me that they're going to educate my kids. So those are 2, because the Lord says, you know that prayer, lead us not into temptation. I pray that prayer a lot. I say, Lord, don't let that happen to me. Don't test me with no cop. Don't have no cop hurt my child. You better not do that, Lord. Because we're going to come see you. We're going to come see. You know them situations, I'm like, yo. You hear the crash in the room, and you're like, just everybody come here. It's going to be one of them types of situations. I'm not lying to you. I don't play about my kids. We continue. I don't pray about you because I'm not even praying about that. If somebody touches you, it's over. We all going to hell.
However, in a dissent in that case, the conservatives' own special boy Scalia said that...
You know how they say if you don't have a womb, like you can't talk on the subject of abortion?
Oh, yeah.
But here all of a sudden,
all these people with no kids, no opinion.
Yeah, but all these people that don't have kids, putting out their opinions.
Yeah. And they're able to vote.
That's what I'm saying.
On these issues. Like, it's fucking incredible.
You don't have any kids, but you have all these opinions.
Well, again, I'm generally
talking right now.
They still have a prevailing interest in an educated society. So they should still be able to vote on it. Because, like I said,
no, I don't think that you should take the votes. I did think about that, but then I'm like, yeah, but you can't. You couldn't say women can't vote on certain topics because it affects men and not women. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do that. Everybody should be able to vote. But
by the way, did Sadie send you a pic of the baby?
No, I didn't see a picture of the baby.
She said, "Did you see the pic of the beastie I sent?" I can't believe she sent you a picture and you didn't.
I didn't. I don't believe I ever saw a picture.
That would be on my screensaver immediately.
Did you email it?
You're in the wrong chat.
Babe, I know. I'm slowly coming into this. I'm thinking. I'm trying to think where she sent that.
All right. So now she's quoting Antonin Scalia, which is funny because all these people were celebrated when Scalia died. But whatever.
Rights over who gets to see their kids. In this case, the court again asserted that the 14th Amendment protects parental rights, saying the 14th Amendment's due process clause has a substantive component that provides heightened protection against government interference with certain fundamental rights and liberty interests, including parents' fundamental right to make decisions concerning the care, custody, and control of their children. However, in a dissent in that case, the conservatives' own special boy, Scalia, said that parents' right to control their children's upbringing was an unenumerated right, and that the judiciary actually should not be the ones who are enforcing this right at all. It should be up to the legislature, according to Scalia. Later, in 2015, before a law school audience, Scalia reiterated this point, saying that parental rights just simply are not in the Constitution. Just like abortion isn't explicitly in the Constitution, nor is the right to contraception, nor is the right to same-sex marriage. It's all made up by the Supreme Court. And
it's ridiculous to say it's made up. It functions, and again, she's a lawyer, so I really don't like it when specialists do stuff like this because they know they're being completely dishonest. All laws, even going as far back as the Old Testament, as in Moses himself, works on the concept of case law. You take a principle, and then you have a situation, and you say, how do I apply the law to this case? Because prior to that, it's all just a theory. She knows this. So when you go to apply a law, that's when statutes and cases and everything, that's why when we talk about abortion, we don't say abortion, we say Roe v. Wade. Why? Because that is a test case. That's an example of how we apply the theory of the rights in the real world. That's basic civics, dear listener. So I don't need a specified article in the Constitution that says I should be able to post I don't support Nazis in Ukraine on Facebook. I don't need the Constitution to specifically say that because we have the principle of free speech. And then what we have is the precedent of all the times that tyrannical people try to end free speech and all the times when that didn't happen. That's how laws work, not only in America, in general, whether you're on the western side of the world or the eastern side of the world. The same thing applies with Islam. The Quran gives a specific law, and then what happens in the Hadith? In the Hadith, what happens is there's a case law that sees how that law gets applied. Okay? So, we don't need to specifically say parents have rights in the Constitution because as you stated about the 14th, as well as the 9th Amendment, those are covered principially, and the Supreme Court on numerous decisions, you gave us 4, has validated that. That's a fact. So your continuation of repeating, oh, it's not in there, and then trying to make some sort of correlation between that and abortion. Sorry, it doesn't work. Abortion, the main argument was we don't know when life begins. That was the argument. It was a scientific argument, and bless God, we now have science. Okay? Which is the reason why those forces tried so hard to keep Roe v. Wade current, even though they knew it was flimsy, because now we're going to have to revisit all of that, and we're going to have updated science, and so the right to privacy argument is not going to work. So right now, they're scrambling, looking at the Constitution to try to find a way to get that back in there. If the science agreed with them, there would be no panic about the Dobbs decision. But now that we have updated science, it's the end of the argument. You guys have seen it a million times here. You guys have seen it. People come up and say, well, it all depends on when life begins. And I say, excellent. Then I show them there's a 96% consensus from a group of scientists literally all around the world, 95% of whom identified themselves as pro-choice and Democrat. So there's no more argument about that. So that's how Roe v. Wade got struck down. The argument relative to children's rights had to do with the inherent rights and responsibility that are naturally given to parents. It was not based on a faulty scientific idea. It was not an argument from ignorance, which is essentially what the Supreme Court decided on relative to abortion. That's not what's happening here.
Even with the protections that currently exist for parents based on Supreme Court precedent, that precedent still does not give...
Sadie, that baby is... did you send that to me yet?
No.
That baby, right now, I've got this owl in my phone little backdrop. You can't see it because it's far away. That baby's so beautiful. It is now on my phone.
I'm sending it as we speak.
Yes, we continue.
Parents the right to do things like go into a public school and dictate what is or is not taught in the school's curriculum. That is
Aha! Now we have it. Let's go back and hear what this woman is saying. Here's where she says there are rights. Here we go.
all made up by the Supreme Court. And even with the protections that currently exist for parents based on Supreme Court precedent, that precedent still does not give parents the right to do things like go into a public school and dictate what is or is not taught in the school's curriculum. That is not protected by the Constitution or any Supreme Court precedent. And
Okay, so there it is. These parents are out here trying to dictate what can and cannot be taught in school. Is that true? There's a bunch of parents running around. Parents were saying parents' rights. Are they going to the school and saying you need to teach this? Is that what's happening? We continue. Here goes Steve Breedlove. Steve, I'm going to read this to you. It's wrong. What you're saying is scientifically wrong. I'm going to take care of this school situation. Steve Breedlove, if you're still around at the end of the school situation, I'm going to help you. And I'm going to show you scientifically how what you said was wrong. Okay? So here's what Steve said. A zygote is a multicell organism, therefore it is life. Meaning every menstruation or ejaculation is technically killing life. No. That's untrue. What you said was completely unscientific. And if somebody doesn't help you with science by the end of this video, when I'm done this, I'll help you. Okay, we continue.
in fact, according to a Washington Post article, common law and case law have long supported the idea that education...
Okay, this is a magazine making this claim. Parents claim they have the right to shape their kids' school curriculum. They don't. Well, they don't have the right to shape the public school curriculum because it's a public institution.
I mean, if every parent got to dictate how the day was going to go, I mean, the teachers wouldn't be able to teach anything. I understand why they have to have a curriculum and why parents can't dictate the entire thing. That's not what they're trying to do, though. It's a very specific section of what the school is doing that the parents are having a problem with.
Correct.
But she wants to make it look like it's like this bigger thing. Oh, they're trying to go in there and dictate the entire curriculum, probably. I mean, the magazine's probably trying to make it.
Yeah. What we're talking about when we're talking about life, number one, we're not talking about all life because I eat chickens every day. What I'm saying is human life is sacred, Mr. Breedlove, and no scientist will tell you that a sperm by itself is an independent living organism. Stop it. Ben, I'm not even going to address because Ben knows he's lying because I've been refuting him a million times. We continue.
should prepare young people to think for themselves, even if that runs counter to the wishes of the parents. That article goes on to say, Republicans gain an electoral advantage by convincing their base that white children are being taught to hate themselves, their families, and their country. Whether this supposed attack on the American way of life is being coordinated by Black Lives Matter activists, Marxist educators, or Antifa operatives, the point is to generate an enemy thought of as being totally evil and totally unappeasable. And boy,
well, that's what a lot of right-wingers believe. Right-wingers believe that critical race theory is being taught in schools, and they obviously have an interest in their children not knowing about critical race theory. Obviously, they have an interest in believing that white people came to the position they're in this country by hard work and Protestant dedication. Okay? Like, obviously, there are implications to that. It's going to imply, it's going to change how kids vote, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, of course, these white parents don't want their children knowing the truth about all this shit. Like, of course. And what I'm saying is...
I don't know why. There's no racism happening now. So what's...
Yeah, because, well, they know. Look, according to the law, those parents have the right to not feel that way about their kids. We continue. Yeah, where's a sperm monster that goes and attacks children? Oh man, we continue.
Is it working? However, conservatives also know that parental rights appear nowhere in the Constitution. And what happens when something that you want is on legally shaky grounds and found nowhere written in the Constitution?
No. RBG said Roe v. Wade was on shaky grounds. Nobody has said that a parent's right over their children has ever been on any sort of legal shaky ground.
The way she
Good
says
night.
it too, like what you want, makes it sound like vanilla or chocolate.
Yeah, I know.
This is our kids.
Yeah,
What do you mean what we want? Yes, we want to.
That's how these people
We
are,
want
though.
other people in control of our
They
children.
really believe that the kid is like some community property thing. It's unbelievable. We continue.
You make an amendment to the Constitution. Conservative lawmakers have proposed parents' rights amendments to the U.S. Constitution, so far with little success, for years. One of the most recent ones was introduced by Republican Representative Debbie Lesko of Arizona, and it would establish that the liberty of parents to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their children is a fundamental right. The amendment further says that the parental right to direct a child's education includes the right to choose public, private, religious, or home schools, and the right to make reasonable choices within public schools for one's child.
There's that reasonable word again. Here we go. Somebody wants to generate a parent's Bill of Rights. Now, I'm going to show you. Now, according to one of our middle Americans, parents already have all these rights. I'm going to show you some of the sections from the Parents' Bill of Rights so we can see. Then we're going to show you some examples. You decide for yourself, dear listener. We continue.
With the passage of laws like the recent law in Utah that restricts usage of social media by minors and requires age verification and parental monitoring for social media, plus laws aimed at protecting trans children from the professional medical care that they are seeking, and laws restricting the teaching of critical race theory in schools, laws all of which involve the state stepping in and controlling children and their parents. It's clear that all of
How does not teaching something then become control? I don't understand that. Parents have the right to decide what they want their kids exposed to, but this woman obviously does not believe that. Now, I obviously disagree with the white parents about critical race theory, but my black children aren't going to that school.
Right.
I don't care. I'm going to teach my kids critical theory from a biblical worldview, so that they don't run around thinking that there's something uniquely wrong with white people. I'm going to explain, yes, all this institutional racism still exists. Why? Because there's something wrong with white people? No. See, that's one of the reasons we have such a problem here, is because you guys don't have any religion when you're talking about injustice. And because of that, you have no way to have forgiveness wrapped into justice. You don't understand how to do that. But see, as a Christian, I have a cross. See, so I have a paradigm that, yes, justice has to be served, but at the same time, you got to find a way to put some mercy in there too. You see? So when I'm addressing a social issue, I have to address it through that lens. And my expectations of people also have to be conformed to the scripture. The scripture tells me all people are sinful. All people are selfish. And what that means is that we're going to abuse power whenever we have it. White people are the majority group in the most powerful country on the planet. Therefore, biblically speaking, they have to abuse it. So if you lived in a world like that, you would expect to see racism, but you would also expect to see a John Brown who's willing to die for black people and was crazier about black liberation than Black Frederick Douglass was. See, I have a way of harmonizing all of these ideas. But see, one of the reasons that white people are so sensitive about being called racist now is because there's no forgiveness for them. See, Tucker knows that his forefathers were horrible, terrible, evil, disgusting, terrible individuals, and that the cushy life that he has was bought by the blood of other people who they destroyed. But he doesn't have a way of getting the forgiveness that he knows that his forefathers need. So instead of saying, my forefathers were horrible, thank God that Jesus died on the cross for them, he has to say, my forefathers made some mistake, but overall they were good guys. And then we got to go into denialism because we don't have a cross.
Yeah.
See? You cannot teach all this stuff without your overarching theology or lack thereof spilling out. Mm-hmm. That's why you got all these white people running around with all this crazy ass white guilt, because they don't know how to harmonize the evil of their forefathers, the fact that they still benefit from it, and the fact that they didn't actually commit any crimes, but somehow there's this they don't know how to reconcile all of that. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have people who are absolutely racist, but they're not racist like in the same way that a guy in the Klan is racist. So you call them racist, they go, I'm not racist, because they're hearing like complete condemnation and no redemption.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in our culture.
Yeah.
It's just nothing but condemnation and no redemption for anybody.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not going to teach my kids about history without that as a backdrop, because I'm not out here to create kids that hate white people. So I said to those black Israelites, I said, listen, one of the ways that I know that your theology cannot be right is because it appeals to the sinful nature, the desire for vengeance, and the inability to forgive. I say that's how I know that you guys are wrong, because I like it too much. Don't take nothing supernatural for get people to dislike white people. What's wrong with you? We continue.
This parental rights bullshit is just conservatives talking out their asses. Because if they really cared...
See? Here's Joseph Decker. As horrible as you called them, they created someone better than the people who decided how they use it. I don't know what you're talking about. If you're talking about your forefathers, I suppose a lot of German people could say that about Hitler. And if they did say that about Hitler, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I agree with them. I think Hitler did a lot of good things over there. But for some reason, the people who oppressed Jewish people, when you acknowledge that about them, you're the worst person in the world. But it's okay to say that your slave-owning, slave-raping ancestors, they were still good people. But that's somehow okay to say.
Yeah.
Now, I think all human beings are simultaneously angels and demons. So you're going to find something. If you want to find something good about a human being, you can find one. If you want to find something bad about a human being, you can find that too. We continue.
Well, it depends. Yeah, you're right.
Go ahead.
It depends on where you are. Like, if you're one of the Jewish people, then you're always gonna have that feeling and that whatever. And if you're one of the if your ancestors were, part of Hitler's crew, then like you said, like they were still their ancestors. Those people are trying to figure out how can I celebrate my past at the same time with looking down on the things that they did that are wrong. And I think that the same thing happens even with the racism in America.
Yeah, I agree. It's not just history either. It goes into white people are basically born racist. Yeah, that's probably true. Ted, do you believe your Bible? Ted, in the Bible it says that we're born sinners. And racism is simply taking the image of yourself and saying that the image of you should be superior in the country. It's a form of self-worship. That's a sin that everybody falls into. That's not something that's
unique
to white people. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, right-wingers should not have a problem with this race stuff at all. If you're religious, you should know immediately that all of us inherited original sin. What are the odds that you're part of the most powerful group of the most powerful country in the world and that you don't have issues stemming from that? I know that I have American privilege. I know that I have American pride. I know that I'm an Americanist to some degree. I'm not as nationalistic as some crazy white nationalist person, but I'm nationalist to a degree, and I accept it about myself. And when there's opportunities to improve, I will improve. What I won't do is act like I don't have a nationalist bone in my body. Act like I wanted Tiger Woods to win just because I care about golf. Or act like I was happy when Obama won the election because,
he's great. He has great politics.
Ridiculous. Christianity should open us up to be like, oh, well, here are my problems. That's what we should say. Christians should be crybabies and denying the sins of our parents and denying the fact that we're the beneficiaries of the evil actions of our parents.
Yeah.
That's Christianity 101. You and I are the beneficiaries of the evil actions of our forefathers who put Christ on the cross. You say, well, my forefathers didn't do that. If Jesus was in Africa, guess what we would have done? We would have crucified him. I hope you know that.
The Bible says that our feet are quick to shed blood.
I don't know. Maybe people think it's only the Italians out there killing folk. Lots of people killing folk. We continue. Let me finish this thing. There's a minute and 20 seconds
about
left.
A parent's unalienable right to have control over their child, how the child is raised, and what the child is taught, they would leave all of this, social media usage, medical treatments, and more, in the hands of parents. Instead, it's clear by their actions that they are concerned about controlling parents and children so that they can be indoctrinated with the right ideas.
Yeah.
But
That's-
she's proposing that we don't do that, so that they can.
So that they can.
Right.
Correct.
So what are you talking
So
about, lady?
that's what I'm saying. She
I mean,
started
my
off
God.
talking about the bigotry of all these parents, these millions of parents. She doesn't know who they are, but she does know that they're bigots. But she doesn't have any.
I know.
She doesn't have any.
I'm sorry, but
But
what
that's
is
why
happening
that's
here?
why I started the video the way I started. This
Yeah.
is about a war of world views.
Absolutely.
And everybody, this is the same thing that happened with Elon and Twitter. Everybody understood that Twitter controls the minds of certain people based on what's allowed to be on that platform and what isn't. And so when Elon got up there, they were angry. Elon was like, free speech, free speech. Elon didn't care about free speech. But Elon's group, the wealthy, straight, white, hetero male, was not given the platform they felt they deserved. And that's what the Twitter wars were about, dear listener. That's all. It wasn't about free speech on Elon's side, and it was not about safety on the left-wing side. Both of those people were full of shit. It's about who gets to control the narrative. So now what happens? Elon buys Twitter, and a bunch of silly leftists who are so childish in their thinking go, oh, he overpaid for it. Ha, 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 ha. It's like, yeah. And he's also got Ron DeSantis on his platform now. And whatever happens, he now gets to control the mindset of literally over 1 billion people.
Yep.
But we're so basic that everything is about money to us. We don't realize that he was using that money to buy power. Mm-hmm. Because once you're at a certain, I think it's Bill Gates, he said once you're at like 6 billion, your money's infinite at that point. You literally cannot overspend it. So, like, even when we talk about the U.S. is sending 80 billion away, we don't send like 80 billion in one lump sum. That's not how it works. We send the money over time. See what I'm saying? So in Bill Gates' mind, like once you hit a certain amount, you have infinite money anyway. Okay.
I see. Yeah, I see.
So Elon losing money on Twitter isn't the point. The point is how to position yourself to have power, because Elon recognizes that we're in a struggle of worldview, and life is better for him if his worldview can win, and Twitter is a vehicle by which to accomplish that goal. And the public school has always been the traditional battleground, dear listener. The public school has always been the traditional battleground because everybody understands that's why in a bunch of places in Europe you can't even homeschool your kids. There's a bunch of places in Europe where that's not even an option.
I bet.
And they know why, because I'm sorry, Europe, but you guys are socialists. There's a lot more government control, a lot more statism, and you guys have a serious problem with statism. I mean, look at the last 100 years. I'm very sorry, but it's true. Here we go. We continue. Sorry, Europeans.
Ideas often based in a white supremacist Christian ideology that runs counter to the ethos of the U.S. Constitution. But
a white supremacist Christian ethos. First of all, I am not sure that you can say that all parents who want to be able to indoctrinate their own kids their way are white supremacists. I don't listen. I don't think
Just realize that. Okay.
you're a regular American working a 9 to 5. You've probably got a job and a half. You're scared to death about everything on the planet. Tucker Carlson comes in and starts talking about critical race theory. You want me to say that 38-year-old mom in Nebraska is a white supremacist because she took Tucker at his word? She's overstressed and overworked and underappreciated. So Tucker comes out and tells her another nightmare. She's like, holy shit, what do I do? You want to characterize that woman as some horrible, evil, terrible person. That's fine. But I want you guys to hear this last little clip, because it tells you everything. It tells you the real reason that she and all these other people have a problem with parents' rights. Here we go.
ideas that have been allowed to proliferate because of ignorance of what the Constitution actually says, combined with the fear-mongering of conservatives at the highest level. And with the way culture wars are currently playing out in America, it's survival of the fittest when it comes to which ideology our children will be indoctrinated with.
There it is!
Yo!
There it is!
Wow!
I appreciate you, lady. I appreciate you, white lady with the glasses and the bad mouth. I appreciate you because you're self-aware enough to understand that all this is about is not about the welfare of children, and it's not about building society. It's about making sure that your secular humanist worldview and philosophy dominates the minds even of my own children. Because you're a statist. You believe that the state has more of a prevailing interest in rights and responsibilities over my child than me. because you believe that the function of the child is to be a servant of the state. You're crazy.
Well, she said it's a war of worldviews.
And folks will die before that happens with my children. They'll literally die. We continue.
The expense of their well-being, their ability to think freely and critically for themselves, and sometimes
Who determines
She just said
what
critically.
thinking freely and critically is? Who
my
determines
gosh. Oh my
those
gosh.
words? I hope you guys are seeing this is all worldview. You get a worldview, and it's through that worldview that you see the prism of truth, rationality, reasonableness, etc., etc., etc. I think it is completely unreasonable to believe that matter, that this brush at some point is going to spring consciousness. And that consciousness sprang about magically with some sort of hocus pocus, with no
like
intention.
on Beauty and the Beast, all those furnitures came to life. Like
Well,
that?
somebody put a curse on the furniture. That had intentionality. These people, they're such lazy writers that the magic happens without a magician. The consciousness and the life just
my God.
sprung out of this dead, inanimate thing. And they want to tell me, oh, you think, I mean, you read a Bible, the donkey can talk. I mean, the text says that God had to give the donkey supernatural powers for it to talk. But what you believe is that the ability to talk came from this. It's madness. What you believe is crazy. It's laughable and silly. And I'm not the only one saying it, dear listener. You don't have to be a Christian to know that materialism and secularism is a fucking dying industry. And these guys are on the last breaths of it. And that's why she's panicking the way she is. She's all hopped up on Xanax. You see her eyes. She's not in good shape. That's what secularism would do to you. I'm not mad at people for having Xanax. I'm just saying she's not in good shape. Look at her. Look, see? We continue.
at the expense of their very lives. Thanks once again to my partner on today's video, Warby Parker. Go to warbyparker.com/Legia to order your home try-on kit for free today. If you liked this video, you'll probably also like this video titled, Let's Talk About Critical Race Theory Since College Board Won't. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Shout out to homegirl. Let's look at some of the crazy white nationalist stuff that we're gonna see on the Parents' Bill of Rights here, because I've got a copy of it if you want to see. Here we go. Here's a crazy Parents' Bill of Rights. You're gonna do this to me, Mr. Screenshot? It is gonna do that to me. I swear. There's got to be.
Yeah, and you keep hearing this noise.
I'm gonna ask God what I did to deserve. Oh, that's what happened. Boom bap. That was there the whole time. Imagine that. If I'd have just done that, the whole thing might have been smooth the entire day. I was sitting there complaining, all upset. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, just went right over. Here we go. Here's the Parents' Bill of Rights, guys. Here's the thing that is so horrible. You notice she was talking about the Bill of Rights. She never said one thing about what was actually in the paperwork of the Bill of Rights. She's a lawyer. She knows what's in there.
Okay.
How come you didn't tell us what it was? Here we go. This bill makes the following changes to the Parents' Bill of Rights.
I didn't know the bill was already
Expands
written.
a current law provision related to parental consent of student participation in surveys to clarify that parental consent must be obtained for each individual survey. Meaning
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Expands a provision to require local educational
Wait, you're
agencies.
saying you can't run a survey and have our kids participate in it without
Without
letting
my
us know.
knowledge
And you have to-
beforehand.
every single survey you
Beforehand.
do. Right, exactly.
Correct.
Exactly.
They're saying that's not currently a federal law. That means that your kid's school can have a bunch of surveys, ask your kid a bunch of intrusive questions, and you'd never know the difference. We continue. Expands a provision to require local educational agencies to provide parents access to inspect all books, reading material, and professional development materials to be used in the school, and prohibits local educational agencies from conditioning that access to inspect on parents signing non-disclosure agreements. So it's saying that the parents would be able to have a full list of all the things their kids are going to be exposed to.
I cannot believe that this has to be a law.
That's what I'm saying. Homeschool your
What do you
kids.
mean?
Good night.
And when kids don't take their books to, like back in the day, we took our books to home.
Correct.
So our parents would see them. So they,
includes the same parent consultation update that is included in the amendments to the FRPA, includes the right to request a review of any books or other reading material made available to students in the classroom school library. Current law limits this right to instructional material as used as part of the educational curriculum. This is specifically talking about some of these crazy books that these sick people are introducing to fucking fourth graders that tell them about websites. There's this website called Grindr where basically gay dudes just fucking find each other and go at it. It's literally, it's called that, literally. And like,
Why were they telling kids about this?
it was in this book. So the book was telling them like how to get in, how to get started, how to explore their bodies, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's a fucking pedophile's wet dream.
What is happening?
Look, one of these days, y'all gonna be push me to the point where I do a documentary on Foucault. And you're not going to like me after that. But that community, there's a fucking problem. There's a problem. You can do what you will with it. There's a problem. Shout out to David Matheson. I'm a fan of New Zealand. Shout out to New Zealand. Actually, the only rugby match I've ever watched was, I'm pretty sure it was this New Zealand team, and they were in all black, and they were doing like that. Oh, no. I was like, oh my
you love
God.
it, yeah.
Well, because it was like the championship, and they're like yelling at each other. I'm like, yo, that must be like the crazy. You want to talk about like an adrenaline junkie? Like, that right there would like, can you imagine like you're with your guys and it's a really violent sport, somebody's going away with a broken something, and it was unbelievable. The haka is what they call it. Oh my gosh, it was incredible. It was incredible. What an experience. Everybody should see that, because like that's like on my bucket list. Like, yo, I got to go and see that. Like, it was unbelievable. Yeah, the chant they do is called the haka. Shout out to New Zealand, and thank you guys for being so patient with me, and instead of being like, it's a haka, you horrible American ignorant motherfucker, people were just nicely saying, hey, ignorant guy, it's a haka. Now I'm educated. That's how it works. That's how we educate ourselves, dear listener. Thank you. You should make a video on that. Most of the postmodernists, not just Foucault, were pedos. A lot more people should be aware where this stuff comes from. Shit. Yeah, let me pray on it, man. I just don't want to like give anybody a thing to like further go after the LGBT community, because I feel like there's a difference between, you know, it's kind of like, you're gonna understand this, the whole Galatian heresy, right? Where Paul, when he talks to the ground level Galatians, he just says, who's bewitched you, what's wrong with you? But then when he talks about the people that are actually presenting the doctrine, he says, you know, if me or an angel from heaven, let them be anathema or whatever. So I'll find some way to harmonize that. I just don't want to ever be, I don't want to ever be used as a weapon like that against gay people.
But I think the fact that you're conscious of that before you even do it would make it, you're preventative, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be reactionary. So I think that's a good sign.
Holy shit. I'm going to have to look at that. There was a video on Deep Green Resistance called Queer Theory Jeopardy, and basically all the founders were pedos. What is Foucault? Foucault is a... Google him, Ian. I might do a special on, I don't know. I'm going to have to pray about it. I'm going to have to consult with Sori to see what happens after it. Okay, so basically, these rights are just rights that a lot of us would probably assume are the rights that parents have. But they're not there. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you guys something. This is what this happened in. I'm going to say India. It's not India. It happened in England. Okay, what I'm about to show you happened in England. Why are you looking like that?
I feel like very emotional, because I feel like is this something bad for kids?
I think it's bad for kids. But I also think it's representational of why we need the concept of parents' rights, and why this woman was being totally dishonest. If this woman was not a lawyer, I would not say she's being dishonest. My problem is, this woman is a lawyer, so that means she knows what case studies are, and she knows what the dangers are, and she's trying to act like there's no issue, but there is absolutely an issue. So we are going to look at a couple test cases as to why parental rights are important, and then we'll give you back the rest of your day.
Like when you were reading like the breakdown of what the law actually is, like what they're trying to do, like everything that you read so far was not crazy. What do you mean people shouldn't have access to their kids' books?
Yes, they
thinks?
literally came out and said that if this law passes, it's going to hurt the LGBT community. If the parents are allowed to look at the books before they're taught, it's going to hurt the LGBT community. Think about what that means. Think about the implications of that. That means we have curated a certain kind of series of books to give to your children because we believe it's going to have the effect, a certain effect relative to that concept that we don't care you as a parent have the right to say. I mean, that's where they're at. That's what these people believe.
This is insane.
They believe that they have the right. She just came out and said it. They have the right to inculcate to your child their ethos, their presupposition, their worldview. So your job is just to generate this human being who then goes into their system as a nice, good capitalist without any religion or loyalty to God, Christ, or their family, or any understanding of the distinction of them as a person, as a male or female, and that they take pride in how God made them. All that shit is wiped out, and now at the end of this 12-year process, we've got a nice, well-adjusted sheep who understands that he's supposed to just watch CNN and Fox News and be educated that way, be a good capitalist, go to work for another person for 40, 50 years.
And apparently give your sexuality to whoever's asking about it.
Correct.
Because some of these teachers were having the kids write down reports of what they would do in certain situations. Very sexual, hypersexual stuff. What they would do, and the kids had to talk about it, write about it. What would you do in oral situation? All these different grossness. Like, this stuff is going on, and then the parents started finding out about it. In detail. Like, to me, no, this is just regular. Like, any teacher that participates in that and doesn't stop that, I don't care. Like, you're a pedophile, you've got some issue. The fact that you didn't go,
I don't know if they're a pedophile.
You're gonna encourage children to talk about what the oral sex one. Remember that write-up paper? You're gonna do that. You're gonna do that assignment with those kids. You're not gonna fight against them. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe any adult that doesn't have pedophilia inclinations would not. I don't believe they participate in that. I think that's weird.
That's because you've never been the sole breadwinner of a family, so you can say that. But if that teacher is the only source of income, she's a single mom with 2 daughters, and that's the only source.
No, it was a man for one.
I'm just saying, you're saying anybody who does that, they're a closet pedo. What I'm saying is, if that teacher's job is on the line and her kids, she's the only thing they got, she's gonna do that shit. I'm not gonna say that he's a closet pedo. I'm not gonna say the guy's a closet pedo, because these people put him in a situation where he has to choose between feeding his family and doing that shit.
Yeah, maybe it's okay. All right, I see what you're saying.
You can't say that.
I see what you're saying. I just think, well, something extreme needs to be said for any teachers that participate in this and don't fight against it. I see what you're saying, like their job. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't care.
You've never been in that situation.
Honey, I'm telling you, I don't want to go to a homeless shelter, but I would go to a homeless shelter before I would pass out fucking paperwork for other people's kids to tell me what they would do in a sexual situation. I'm telling you, I would not do that. I would be in that office with the principal or whoever I need to talk to.
I believe you are 100% sincere. But until you're in that situation, you cannot know what you're going to do. That's just logic. You cannot know what you're going to do until you're in that situation.
You'd pass those papers? Are you saying you might? You might pass papers to some 4th graders for them to talk about their sexual stuff?
Do I believe that if you were Sayla's only source of income, and you truly believed you had no other way to get a source of income, and it was either that or send her to her father?
Yeah, but this sounds like the 1%
or send her to her father. You would do whatever you need to do to keep her there. That's what I believe. So you can't say that. You can't make a judgment call like that about people. That's crazy to me. You're in a privileged position.
Yeah, and I pull back on that, but
you can't say that they're pedophiles.
Yes, I said I pulled back on that.
Okay.
I pulled back
All
on
right.
that, but I'm still saying something extreme needs to be said for teachers who participate in that.
I don't think we need to say anything extreme. I think what needs to happen is people need to be educated, because most people don't know what the fuck is actually happening. For example, you hear a bunch of people
But I'm
saying,
talking about the teacher who knows what papers he's passing out to
what
the
I'm
students.
saying is a teacher needs help, because the teacher is at the mercy of the legislator. So it's not like the teacher has autonomy in these people's world to do whatever the hell they want. Like, think about like the No Child Left Behind thing. They went from educating kids to basically teaching them about the test and all the other stuff. There's a lot of complexities to being a teacher in the United States of America. Keep in mind, these are the same teachers that are fucking barricading themselves into doors, taking literal bullets for these kids. They love these kids, a lot of these teachers.
I don't believe the teachers that have taken bullets have passed out those papers.
That's because you have an assumption about your worldview. But if those teachers from their worldview believe that that's healthy for that kid,
I need to talk to these people who believe that that's healthy for these kids.
what do you mean? Some 20-year-old kid who's been indoctrinated with secular LGBT bullshit? Of course they're going to believe that's the best thing for them. What are you talking? Of course they believe that. Of course they do. You don't think some 25-year-old kid fresh out of school?
I know. I totally can picture some 20-year-old. Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, so we got to be very, very careful here, because these are people that are taking bullets for kids that are not their children. That's it. So we can't, like, we got to be very, very careful here. We got to be very careful, and we got to go after the people that are the real problems. The regular teacher at the ground level is not the problem. To me, it's like the cops. I don't think anybody at 18, 19-year-old goes, I want to be a cop so I can fuck people's lives up. But you go in as a cop as an individual, but then you get subsumed into a collective. And the rules of the collective are different than what you thought your ideal was. Mm-hmm. So I have a real problem with characterizing teachers that way. I think that there are a group of really sick people in that profession, and I think they're like literally 1 or 2%. I think for the most part, teachers are good. Honestly, in my view, teachers are the best of the people that we have in this country, honestly, if you want, in my opinion.
And you're saying that, including the teachers that passed those papers to those students, you're including those teachers in that. Because you still think that
there are parents,
there's nothing that they can do
there
about
are
it.
parents that want to give their kids gender reassignment surgery at fucking 11, 12 years old.
And even younger, yeah.
I
I'm
think
aware of that.
they're crazy.
Yeah.
But I do not support Texas characterizing that as child abuse and then taking the kid away. Why? Because I am certain that those parents are convinced that if they don't do that for that child, they're going to have a dead child.
I agree with that. I
Okay,
agree
so
that
what I'm
that's
saying
what's
is
happening.
when a person is inculcated with that ideology, I could see how they could think that they're doing something that's going to help the child. A lot of these teachers are people in their 20s, don't have any kids themselves, idealistic and silly and don't know anything. And they're taking their cues from a very small group of psychopathic pedophiles. I'm sorry. Very small group of psychopathic pedophiles who now have control over what they think. So these teachers are not able to see, why the fuck am I asking this question? They're looking at it like, this is going to cut down on teen suicides because the kid's going to be able to find out who he is, and I'm going to be able to support him, and I'm going to be able to support him from school, and even though he's going to go home to his homophobic parent, he's going to know that he can come to me and blah, 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 blah.
No,
That's what's going on in their heads when they're passing that shit around. They're not saying, ooh, we're going to train the next generation of child porn
I
actors.
think no. I think that when they go to the counselor and the counselor starts doing all that stuff, yeah, I agree that I think the counselor's trying to help them. I was talking about the assignments that they're having them. Remember they said that they had to pick a sexual act and talk about it?
I agree. But what I'm saying is these people believe that asking those questions is going to get the kid to be more comfortable with their native sexuality, and because of that, the kid is not going to kill himself. That's what they believe.
That's the purpose of that?
That's what they believe, yes. They don't believe I'm sending this. You think the vast majority of the people that sign up to be teachers are pedophiles? Like, I think that's crazy.
No. I literally said the people that are passing
I'm
those
just saying
things.
they're doing that because
No, I don't think the majority of
they're
teachers are pedophiles.
Okay, so they joined the profession because they love kids. It's obviously not because of the money, right?
Oh, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is I'm taking this good, kind-hearted person. This thing gets presented to them. It doesn't get presented as we're going to throw out this random thing and you know, whatever. And it doesn't get presented to them as, hey, we're going to find out where the kids are that we can molest. It gets presented as, kids are killing themselves because of this LGBT shit. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create an environment where they feel loved, accepted, completely comfortable in their own skin. So when they go home and they have that moment in the bathroom, they can say, well, I'm going to be with Miss, you know, Higglebaum tomorrow, so I won't have to do that. That's what they're being sold. Okay? So if a 25-year-old girl from school has that in her head, she's going to go and disseminate the thing with and feel great about it. Now, when the thing gets collected, I'd like to know where those papers go. That's the real question. Like, I can trust Miss Higglebaum, but where are those papers going? Who knows this information, and why wasn't I told beforehand? That's what I'm saying. It's a very sticky situation because a lot of these teachers are now taking the role of parent. Like, they'll say, my kid's this, my kid's that. And so that's good in the sense of they'll take a bullet for the kid, but it's bad in the sense of they will make parenting decisions because they really believe that at some level it's their kid. You see what I'm saying? So it's a very sticky situation and a very nuanced relationship. So I just want to make sure that, like, we're not condemning, you know, a group of people, secular or otherwise, I think are the best people that we have. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
You didn't cut me off.
Okay. So,
yeah, I'm not considering the fact that the teacher is doing. To me, it's so absolutely fucking crazy that anybody would even do that with a. I can't even. I understand what you're saying, and I'm giving you like a little like drip in the bucket because yeah, that's possible.
I know,
but I know some teachers personally, and I don't think that they would pass that thing. But maybe they would. Maybe I don't know them well enough.
Are they Christians?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
No, I don't. I even know people that aren't Christians that wouldn't pass that paperwork to students.
You know, who are these pagan teachers that you know?
No, I'm saying that I know people that are not Christians that would say that they would not pass that to kids.
That's what they would say, but they're not in that situation, so you can't use them as I keep telling you, you can't say any of this shit until the person's in the situation.
Yeah.
When the person's in the situation, then they can tell you what they would or wouldn't have done. I mean, I barely know what I would do in that situation. Like, I have an idea what I would do, but you really can't say unless, you know, you've been in that situation yourself. Or you're saying you can know.
Well, when you add okay.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I'm saying I know I'm not passing that paper to anybody's kids. There's a fucking million reasons why I'm not doing that. Yeah. So I don't care what your psychobabble is and what you believe that this is going to do for these kids, but I don't fucking see that at all.
Yeah.
And I can look at myself and I can say, I know that there were times where I went to the store manager on stuff when I was working at places because I felt like that the store was doing stuff that was dishonest. So I can look at stuff in my life where I went against the grain to say something was wrong. And I'm telling you, I am not passing anybody papers like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll say this.
But
I can't know
pedophiles.
exactly what you would do, but I would be extremely surprised if you did because, I mean, we've proven it on a multitude of occasions. Like, we don't care. I don't care what the Attorney General says. We don't care. We don't care. Right. So, yes.
But I was not considering the fact that, you know, like some of these teachers are in there. They really, really love the students. Maybe they're really like want to be up on like what's the most relevant science. So when they took stuff out of the DSM-4, whatever the thing is called, you know what I mean? Like when stuff starts switching, they're like, let me switch on this too. Let me get everything on board. And if they're trying to make them more comfortable, then they're not feeling
Delaney's backing you up. There was a teacher who gave students an assignment to write about their sexual fantasies. That one is just one where I'm like, to your guys' point, like there's no, why are you asking a third grader about their fantasies? Like, it's insane. It's as I said, like, how could you be even comfortable asking another adult that question?
And I'm telling you,
like, I wouldn't even ask an adult that
I feel really uncomfortable.
It's just a weird question. Why would you want to know that? But you're an authority figure. You see? You're an authority figure in a school, so the kid is going to comply because we've taught them to respect you. See, this is my prop. See, this is another thing about this is another reason I homeschool my kids. I'm not going to introduce my kids to another set of adults that they're
Right.
supposed to
Right.
they're supposed to listen to and,
Yeah.
and take real deep advice from. Nah, I want to curate all those people, like the members of the church. Like I know them. I know what he's about. I would say, listen to this guy. Spend a lot of time with this guy. Don't pay attention to this guy. But at a school, I don't know you. I'm not handing my kid over to you. I don't know what you believe. Man, get out of here, bro. We continue. We continue. I think I got the video here. All right, here is where we could go, dear listener, if we don't get this straight. We continue. Then,
No, Ben, I literally said I would go to the school direct. Like, I'm the type of person that calls, like, tell me who your corporate person is. I want to talk to the person that you report to. That's what I would do. And the only reason I'm hesitating on it is because he said, I'm in a financial situation, I'm taking care of Selah, and I'm on my own. Okay, in that situation, I still think that I do the same thing, but that's because I have supportive family. So I know if I lose my job, I know my family would say, hey, you didn't pass out those papers, you have a place to stay. So if I don't have any support, I have a bad living situation, like this is my bread, this is my livelihood, and I know that if I go in that office and I stand up and say something, I could lose this job. I don't know. I don't know. I still think I do the same. I still think I make the same choice, but in that situation, I'll throw in with you and say, I don't know.
no, I would be highly surprised if you didn't rip that paper up to shreds.
There's literally so many reasons.
But you're the type of individual who literally went head up with the fucking district attorney of your state. How many people do you think have that kind of mentality?
Yeah, I get
Like
that.
that's how far you had to go
Yeah. No, I understand.
to stand up against these people. So, like, a normal regular person without especially a Christian world is just not going to do it. You got Christians that believe they'll be rewarded in the afterlife and all that shit to stand up to
you know what?
persecution and still wouldn't do it.
I'll tell you, the way that I was raised, we didn't do TV, we didn't have music, everything was like really litigious and very strict. But we always had to be like the oddballs out. So everybody else is watching the movie, you got to tell them it was in school they started watching a movie, I was grounded. I had to tell them I was grounded. Like, you're always having to stand up and be the odd guy out the whole time. And then being homeschooled, you're also the odd person out. So like it like raises you to be a certain type of person.
Yeah.
Where you're used to not going along with what everybody else is doing.
And you see with our kids, like our kids don't know about this compliance shit.
They're genuinely confused.
They don't know.
about
They
it.
don't understand that just going along with whatever. Like they have no idea. So Dorian got up there and says, "Here, you can listen to the testimony of a doctor who participated in this butchery." He says he's pointing at the. Woo-hoo-hoo! That boy was not playing. We continue. I might put that video out there.
That's what I was thinking. I was going to cut it up.
I might cut it up and close caption that shit. I was very proud. It's back to football. All right, here we go.
Faith and freedom on trial in the UK. A primary school in London compelled a 4-year-old Christian boy to participate in an LGBTQ pride event. When the parents sued the school, claiming their religious and parental rights have been violated, a central London court ruled against them. Now they're appealing that decision. Here to explain what happened is Izzy Montague, the mother of the 4-year-old boy. Izzy, so Heavers Farm Primary School had this gay pride parade event. What did school officials tell you when you objected to your son's mandatory participation?
They said that he would have to attain, that this was a celebration of, quite a few things, but they equated LGBT to be about equality, diversity, and that it's an assembly and every child must attend.
I mean, that's a legal thing? Is it the law that says they must attend, or how did you respond to it?
I mean, absolutely not. I mean, my fear was that this was going against the law, that the school should have known that no child should have to march around the school for sexuality in particular, but against their beliefs as Christians. I had never heard of, any child being forced to do something against their beliefs. And in particular in this school, they, seem to have opt-outs for many things, for religious purposes. Children didn't have to participate in Easter parades, nativity plays, because on religious grounds. So I presume that this would have been the same thing for this. I did express that.
The problem, Mom, is that these people are secularists. So, of course, they're going to say that you can't have a Easter pageant or whatever because of the separation of church and state. But then when it comes to your child and their their secular religion and their secular religious commitment to their sex cult, then your kid has to comply. Because as we heard from the previous lawyer, this is ultimately about which worldview the child is going to adopt.
Did you hear them say it was about diversity and equality?
Oh, yeah.
As they're forcing people, this child to participate in it?
Oh, yeah.
They're like, we're going to force you to participate in our diversity.
Yeah, hey, come here, dear listener.
My God, what the heck?
Yeah, we had, look at all the diversity.
Poor little, he's 4, he's Orion's age.
He's Orion's age. Poor kid's confused. You know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen.
Nope.
Listen. This is the UK. A lot of Americans don't realize the assumptions about free speech and these were distinctly American ideas. Mm-hmm. I got a friend in GB that literally got handcuffs put on him for quoting the Bible outside in public. Okay? So these people are at literal war with our worldview because our worldview is in direct conflict with theirs. We're the most aggressive people at the social level when it comes to what those folks are trying to do on a societal level. So they're going to come after us. They're not coming after the Muslims because the Muslims don't have enough capital and power to really do anything. That's why they have to resort to terrorist actions. You know, when you have a lot of money, you don't resort to terrorism. You just buy a country and have it done. You settle matters that way. You don't resort to terrorism. Muslims don't have enough money yet to be a real threat to these people. So we're going to take your 4-year-old and you can teach him whatever you want when you're at home for now. Don't say it too loud in public because they will arrest your ass in GB. But so you could say kind of whatever you want, but when your kid's here, he's our property. He's our property. And we're going to march his little 4-year-old Christian self all around the school quoting all types of shit that disagrees with the fundamentals of his worldview. And then we're going to have him fill out a survey and ask him if he's truly a boy or if he likes nail polish once in a while, which would indicate that he may be a girl, but we don't know. And we're going to have all these conversations and books and sexualize your kid and tell him about websites and sexual positions, all types of shit, and you won't even know. Yeah, I think we need a Parents' Bill of Rights. That's what I think. I think that there are really, really sick people in this world, and I think that we need a Parents' Bill of Rights. Not for the sake of parents. Not for the sake of parents. Dear listener, please focus on what I'm about to tell you. America has more guns than people. That's it. That's the statement. It's a bad idea. Here we go. See, this is the shit you can do in London. The Londoners aren't walking around with 9s and 6 hours and all types of shit. They're not doing that. All right, here we go. Hey, let's check this out. There's another situation.
Parents in Montgomery County, Maryland have sued their school district over a policy prohibiting parents from opting their children out of lessons on gender identity and sexual orientation, even for religious reasons. The plaintiffs, a Muslim family and a Christian family, filed the lawsuit in federal court, alleging the district violated Maryland law and their First Amendment rights to the free exercise of religion by not allowing them to opt their children out of lessons using Pride storybooks, a series of children's books from the Human Rights Campaign with gay and transgender themes. The books were first introduced into classrooms of Montgomery County Public Schools in October. The lawsuit says the families repeatedly sought a remedy from school officials before the district declared in March no opt-outs would be allowed, a reversal of previous policy. The lawsuit says The school board's recent about-face strips away a long-standing protection of parental rights. This violates not just Maryland law and board policy and practice, but also the United States Constitution. Montgomery County Public Schools told the Washington Examiner the school district does not comment on pending litigation.
Okay, I do have to say, Applejack did bring up a point. It's been a blind spot of mine. You got to give it to him. Pedophilia, I think, he's saying is not distinctly American. I know Muslims on Twitter that think 6 to 9-year-old girls are sexually mature. Yep, and we covered that. He's 100% right. We've got the facts. We've got the receipts. And the reason they believe that is because their prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, married a 6-year-old girl and then consummated that relationship with that 6-year-old girl on the day that she was playing with her dolls, and she was very nervous. She had a panic attack before this situation happened. That's a fact. That's all recorded in Islamic history by the most credible Islamic sources in the world. So that's a fact.
That's crazy that Applejack knows people currently that are still saying, because most people will be like, they want to
well,
say,
if you press a serious Muslim,
yeah,
they're gonna stay loyal to Muhammad. So
yeah, but he's not saying that they're still throwing in with Muhammad. He's saying that they think 6 to 9-year-olds, they themselves think that they're sexually
mature. The reason they
mature.
think that is because their prophet did that, and they have a doctrine about their prophet that he would not have done that if it was not for a good reason.
I thought it was like something different, because you know how they'll usually
they're coming back. They're just
try to
saying,
make it look like it's not a thing, and people try to move away from it. Like, I thought this was different because these people were saying that it was.
No, the initial instinct to say that's not true. He never did that, and then when they find out that he did do that, then they go and justify it because they can't say that what he did was wrong. So they have to say that. All right, there it is, fellas. There it is. There you go in London. They force a little 4-year-old kid to march around. Good night. The kid probably has no idea what he's even saying. And then here in America, you have teachers that are saying, nope, we're going to teach your kids all this shit about homosexuality and LGBT, blah, 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 and you have no say in it. I want to have those conversations with my kids. I don't want you having those conversations with them. I want to have those conversations. I don't want your worldview. I don't want your crazy, confused worldview that came around like 40 years ago. Like, no. You guys need to figure shit out. You guys can't even figure out basic shit. Like how... I don't want you guys teaching my kids about that shit. I'll teach my kids about it. We have some very, very in-depth conversations about it. And you know what else? Teaching people things does not mean that people agree with your conclusions. I've got some kids. There's diversity of opinion in this house around that topic. There's real distinct diverse opinions. And we allow it because my job is not to teach them what to think, it's to teach them how. Now, when I question them, I want to attack the foundational, aspects of their epistemology, like how did you get there? Mm-hmm. And we're going to challenge those things.
Yep.
But we're not going to challenge their ability and decision to formulate their own morality and their own understanding of how shit works. Mm-hmm. Sorry. That's not... I don't even believe that's in my jurisdiction as a parent. Mm-hmm. Much less a stranger.
Yeah.
I don't even believe I have the right to enforce my LGBT policy on my own children. Much less some fucking weirdo in a school that doesn't know them and doesn't know God. Get out of here. Y'all crazy. We need God, y'all. I don't care what anybody says. We need God. You don't know what a man or a woman is. You don't know math. You don't know how you're supposed to treat people. You don't even know how you're supposed to treat your body without God. You got people hacking their bodies up all to shreds and shit. Listen, the secular project is over. It's over. Secularism is over. It's horrible. It's a rotten tree with rotten fruit. There's literally nothing good about secularism. Nothing. The only thing good about secularism is when secularists pretend to be Christians. That's it. That's really it. I don't have a problem with secularists. I'm saying the ism has got to die. Because you got millions of people now walking around completely confused.
Yeah, it's interesting.
The biggest thing about our country right now is everybody is confused. Mm-hmm. It's nothing but confusion. You need God. Say what you want. I'm telling you, unsubscribe, whatever. I'm telling you, we need God.
Yeah.
Like water. You need them. Go ahead. That's the lesson.
Well, and it was a little bit late now, but I was going to say that the Bible says that we're made in the image and likeness of God, and you were like, you said something about the secularists the only time when they're doing basically when they're doing God's work. Mm-hmm. So basically when they are, because being made in the image and likeness of God is like what God is like, you show what that's like. So sometimes people show it through their art or their kindness or their whatever, like the positive qualities of God. When we reflect them, we're doing what we were made to do, is basically what's happening. So when you said that about the secularists, I was like, well, at the end of the day, they are still made in the image and likeness of God. So when they...
And your strange little idiosyncrasies. Those are all unique ways in which you image God. When I say, dear listener, that's God telling you he loves all you people. That's all. So, like, you know, it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. But the secularists, they don't have any of that. You're an accident. Your parents, through a series of a bunch of, contingencies and counterfactuals ended up in the fucking, under the trailer or whatever somewhere, and then boom, out you came. And that's what you have to direct your life for the next 70 spins around the planet. You're some cosmic accidents without any, significance to your being. Ridiculous. The image of God is not just that you do good things. It's also that you have this heavy weight of value, that you're valuable, that there's nobody on the planet has ever imaged God the way that you do now, and it will never happen ever again. You're literally one of one. That's what it means. Then we're going to send you out into the world to go and fucking make a garden out of this desert. That's the life. That's my children's self-understanding. You got millions of people out here walking around with no self-understanding whatsoever. Secularism will not give you dignity, dear listener. Eat, be warm and well fed. Love your neighbor, take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. No, listen, Ozzy. See, I knew somebody was going to do this. He says, wow, Vin, such little respect. No, secularism is a horrible ideology, terrible ideology. There's a difference between the ideology that you hold to and who you are and what you are as a person. I don't just respect you, I glorify you, because the scripture says that you are crowned with glory and honor, Ozzy, whoever and whatever you are. So I respect the hell out of you. I respect the divine in you. But I do not respect a worldview that doesn't comport with reality. I have a lot of ideas that don't comport with reality, and I need education to help me identify those things. That's why when I said something incorrect and Ian corrected it, I thanked him for it. Because I'm always trying to get closer and closer and closer to ultimate reality. I love all of you beautiful people, but secularism is a disease. It's horrible, and every time it gets tried out, it always leads to confusion, destruction, and death. That's a fact. It's a fact. Because it's cutting you off from your spiritual and your emotional and your physical life source, which is your creator. Can't Earth be my God? No. Earth cannot be your God, because you are too important for something as small as the earth to just be your God. And you have way too much universal impact for something as little as the earth to be your God. You're greater than the earth. So no, the earth cannot be your God. You can destroy the earth, you can destroy it, you can pillage it, you can do all types of shit to it. How in the world can it be your God? It can't resist you. No, the earth is not your God, my brother. You are the ruler of the earth. If there's a tree that interrupts your driveway, that tree is coming down. So how in the world can the tree be your God? No. Let me tell you something, Ozzy. When you meet the Almighty, I promise you, you're not going to for a minute think to yourself, yeah, if he was in the middle of my driveway, I could just cut him down and get him out of the way. No, your God is your actual God, not the fucking planet. Come on, man. I love you. And the scripture says, love does not rejoice in evil, but rejoices with the what?
The truth.
The truth. So from a Christian worldview, if I love you, I'm going to tell you the fucking truth. No, the earth is not your God. You're greater than the earth. So the God that has to be your God has to be greater than you and the earth. And there's only one thing greater than you and this earth, And that's the God who made you in his image, Ya Azi. How is me telling you that you're created in the image and likeness of the infinitely valuable God disrespectful to you? Stop it. See, it's your secularism, Ozzy, that's turned all this around on you. I was giving you the greatest compliment on the planet, dear listener, and you turned it into something disrespectful. That's what happens when you have a bad worldview. Black is white is black, sweet is bitter, bitter is sweet. I love you all. Vin out!
Sorry, out.
Go!